That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to the show where we wax poetic about the movies we see on a month to month basis. It's time to crack open our relatively light this month, so let's not hype it up too much. It's our
Movie Memoirs.
movie memoirs. Yeah, our movie memoirs. All right. We're in sync with that. Yeah, Dragon, honestly, this was kind of what I was worried that January was going to be. Is February the new January, Dragon? Is that where we're at now?
Honestly, I mean, Tiki, honestly, the way it usually goes is, look, January is the dumping ground. February, however, is usually the dumping ground, but occasionally you have the gems, you have the gems in there. For example, Deadpool from 2016. February. Black Panther, February.
Captain America, Brave New
Well,
World.
we'll get there, but that's my point. I said ordinarily.
Right.
Okay, so that's why it's not a lock, but this year, well, anyway.
All right. So without further ado, let's get into the news. Okay, so yeah, quite a few celebrity. It's really funny. Well, it's not funny. It's actually quite sad that literally about halfway through the month, you and I were like, "Oh, this is shaping up to be a relatively light celebrity death month," and then two big ones hit us just right off the top. So let's get into that. Of course, the biggest one obviously is going to be Gene Hackman, cinematic
this one
legend.
was a gut punch.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, here's the thing: we always knew it was a matter. Here's Gene Hackman was getting up there, 95. Which honestly, I mean, collectively, 95 usually seems to be like the kind of the natural causes age. I mean, these days, in terms of if you lived a good life, or if you've been lucky, usually like Stan Lee, 95. That's the barometer. And I always knew it was a matter of time for Hackman, but the suspicious nature of his demise is really it's really heady. I'm going to say that much.
Wait, I've actually not looked into that at all.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. I mean, look, the details have not come out yet, but the thing is, it wasn't just Gene Hackman who died. Gene Hackman, his wife, and his dogs.
Oh really?
They died, and the door was open. There were pills. I think there were like pills in the bathroom or something. But it was there's like new details coming out. They checked for carbon monoxide. It wasn't like a gas thing. But I think because Gene Hackman, despite being up there, he was he was getting around. He was still doing stuff. He wasn't like he seemed to have his faculties. He seemed to be he was retired, but he's pretty good.
Right.
And his wife was like 60 years old. He was like 60 something years old. He was he was like 95. So it is there are a lot of suspicious circumstances they're looking into. They don't suspect foul play, but it's a mystery. It's kind of like a game of Clue almost. Like what happened here? Anyway, but yeah, regardless, Gene Hackman. I'm sorry, you were saying about Gene Hackman. How do you feel about Gene Hackman?
I mean, like, here's the thing: is that I didn't really grow up on the Superman movies per se. Little Blue said only one dog died.
Yeah, I keep hearing. I heard there were multiple. Apparently, there were multiple dogs. Only one died. The point being, dogs are dead.
Yes. But Dragon, for me, Gene Hackman, like the stuff I really remember him from was his late career stuff. I think the big one for me as a Wes Anderson super fan is going to be the Royal Tenenbaum. Of course, I think Royal Tenenbaum is kind of his definitive role in the way that Lex Luthor is his definitive role for most people. For me, you know what? I don't care. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Fucking Welcome to Mooseport was fun.
Look, I want to be clear, okay? So, Welcome to Mooseport, it's very bittersweet because it's a shame that was like the one that kind of made
it's his last movie. It's a totally disposable movie, but like I at this point I honestly kind of look at that
Hackman
movie
wasn't the problem with that movie. I want to be very clear.
That movie is kind of like it's kind of like a relic of a bygone age as far as like high concept comedies,
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, again, he was fun in that movie. There was no he
was, yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, go on.
Also, like even stuff like Heist, like I think his late era stuff is actually pretty memorable, and that's really more where I
frankly I think his best stuff was in his late era.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, I was never like because I didn't really grow up with the Superman movies. I watched them maybe once or twice as a kid, but they weren't stuff that I watched over and over again like the Batman movies were. So I never really connected with his Lex Luthor, honestly. I respect his approach to Lex Luthor. It's definitely a little bit unconventional compared to the traditional comic book kind of approach of Lex Luthor, which is more what people like fucking Kevin Spacey, were doing. But what do you want to say about him?
So, one of the all-time greats. He did not. I'll tell you this. Okay, a lot of people are. I want to make this clear. I've learned this recently. So a lot of people are saying all the wonderful things about Gene Hammond. There is one thing I should note. Okay, as wonderful an actor and as a professional he was, there was a double-edged sword there, in that he did not suffer fools because he was the. A lot of people don't know this. Gene Hackman was a Marine. He did not suffer fools.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was doing Get Shorty with Barry Sonnenfeld, point being, he was the nightmare to any young directors out there. So Barry Sonnenfeld working on Get Shorty, he was merciless, with Sonnenfeld. He would throw some world class hissy fits, but again, in the service of the performance, like to get the best performance out there. But like Travolta was very green on that movie. A lot of people forget, like Get Shorty was that Travolta starring in that film, but he was very nervous acting opposite Gene Hackman, despite the fact that the relationship was very much the flip side. Like he was supposed to be the cool, confident one, and Gene Hackman was supposed to be out of his element.
Right.
Which is really funny. And Barry Sonnenfeld handled Gene Hackman like a champ, where he didn't really insult him, but he was very much Sonnenfeld, despite being the ultimate neurotic Jewish director, he did not back. Anyway, my point being. So Sonnenfeld's is giving us the great tell-all Gene Hackman stories, but in all seriousness, Gene Hackman. One of the reasons we even got the Donner Superman film, because that movie is sold on name recognition, which then allows Christopher Reeve to be cast in that film. So it's like we have Brando. Sure. Brando's obviously the lightning rod who attracts everyone, and then you have Gene Hackman, and there's this wonderful story about. Sorry, I love the Superman lore of how that original movie was made, but just the one story I want to share is that Gene Hackman used in the days of the 70s, the early 70s, he was famous for having a mustache, and obviously Lex Luthor does not have a mustache, not even factoring in the hair, he doesn't have a mustache. So Richard Donner basically had like a fake mustache put on. He said, "Look, Gene, if I shave my mustache, would you consider shaving yours?" He says, "All right, fine." And then basically goes, "What? I shaved my mustache," and Richard Donner's peeled it off, just revealing see, fake mustache.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
Now they put the bald cap on for Lex.
Yeah,
that's why they have the whole wig thing, because some things she wouldn't budge on. But regardless, just he in that movie, I always go to. That kryptonite reveal that's the wonderful, because Lex Luthor as a businessman was kind of a new concept in the comics at that time.
Right,
so that's why
right.
Hackman kind of played both. He was kind of like the fun 70s kind of. He was big business, but he wasn't quite in a high rise. That was the point. But he was the way that is still his finest scene in that film to me, despite all the hilarious things like Otisburg and him dealing with General Zod and Superman 2. But just the way in which he got Superman and this diseased maniac would be your banker, and puts the kryptonite around his neck. That is the most menacing Lex Luthor moment, despite him having this big old silly 70s flower in his lapel. That's what's great about
totally.
Gene Hackman as Lex, is that he was in the flamboyance of the 70s, but he grounded that performance.
Little Blue also brings up the Birdcage, which is
that was the other one I wanted to mention too.
I still haven't seen that. It's definitely on my to watch.
There are two movies I really want you to watch in regards to Hackman. Okay. Okay, The Birdcage is one of them for the last.
No, obviously, The Birdcage. There's reasons to watch that outside of Hackman.
That's what I'm saying. You have an all-star. That movie has an all-star cast, and Robin Williams is really great in that movie.
Nathan Lane, of course.
I don't want to now, because I know hopefully you're going to watch it. I don't want to give it away, but there's this really fantastic moment towards the very end, during the climax of the movie, with Gene Hackman, and it's like we make him.
Yeah, don't give it away, because I will watch it. But
it's this moment where he's in a position you wouldn't believe he'd be in, but he conveys such a vulnerability. And again, it's kind of a comedic circumstance, but you feel kind of the personal dread that he's going through, and the fact that Gene Hackman would be big enough to do that moment at that point in time. Mm-hmm. The other thing, though, is the one you really should watch. Okay, so obviously we all can kind of laugh to the bank on Welcome to Mooseport, but the film that really was intended to be had he been able to choose what his out would have been, but his retirement movie would have been, It was Runaway Jury. That was the movie right before.
Oh yeah, you've recommended that one to me
and that is
before.
currently on Netflix, Teak. And I have talked about this movie a lot. I love like the food. There's a really great food scene in that movie, which I think you'd really like. But on the whole, it's a really good movie, and Hackman gives a heck of a potential final performance in that movie. And I know afterwards he narrated a lot of war documentaries and everything, but that was like the last true blue like performance that is like pure Hackman. That's one you gotta watch, Tiki.
Got it.
Anyway, point being, just always brought his A game in again as a paragon to the industry of film, and he'll be absolutely missed.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Little Blue says one of the films that Hackman has that I plan on reviewing.
This is a really good one, by the way. I love the
Quick and the Dead.
That was a Sam Raimi film. That was great.
Oh, nice.
That's another. Wait, did you ever see Quick and the Dead?
I have not.
That's another. Okay, if you had three, that would be the third. We're gonna move on. Okay.
Great. Okie dokie. So next up, we have, of course, the other big kind of gut punch. This is less so like a legacy actor and more so just like a childhood icon.
Well, she kind of has a legacy in her own. She was the beginning of it, Tiki.
Well, she does, yeah. So we have Michelle Trachtenberg, Harriet the Spy herself, Nickelodeon's first movie lead, which is that what you're talking about as far as
that's the thing, like essentially ushered in the Nickelodeon movie.
Right. So Harriet the Spy, and then of course
Harriet the Spy,
of course, live action Penny from Inspector Gadget.
That's what hit me hard. Like, oh man,
I know. That's kind of what hit me hard too. I'm not gonna lie, even though I don't really like that movie.
Well, I know, but still, it was like, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was the escalation from Harriet the Spy.
I have not seen Unforgiven, Little Blue. I'm not that big.
Unforgiven is possibly Gene Hackman's, like, the two movies that people.
I tried watching Unforgiven back like closer to college. I couldn't really get into it. I'm sure I'd probably do better with it nowadays.
Okay, just because obviously Hackman. There's all. I've got to be honest, Tiki. I was potentially contemplating us doing a whole thing on Hackman, but we just didn't have the time.
We did. I feel like if it would have come out like in a time when we were less busy, then we probably would have.
But I would just real quick, just to rattle this off, because Little Blue's just going to go through the whole. Little Blue, you're just going to go through the whole filmography. We know he's great and everything. You don't have to go through the whole filmography. I want to shout this.
French Connection's another one I have not seen that I probably should.
I thought you did see French Connection. You sure about that?
Did I? Maybe I did.
Because I saw French Connection. I know that's the Pipe Doyle one. Like, not anything. It was the guy who did Freakin' did that one.
Maybe. No, I don't think so.
Okay, anyway. Point being, young Frankenstein, he played the blind man and stole the show. That was he did that pre-Superman. Unforgiven and Hoosiers are probably the most iconic Gene Hackman roles. Okay, now we're going to move on.
All right, so Trachtenberg, another big thing that she did was that you and I don't really have a lot of vetting interest in is Buffy. She was in 66 episodes of Buffy, so I know that show is a big cult favorite for many people, so we just need to point it out.
You know what the last thing you and I may have seen her in was?
What?
Cop Out. She was the daughter in Cop Out.
Right. Yeah, which I still have not sat down to watch Cop Out Dragon just for the
I heard something really adorable, which is really kind of prophetic, thinking about it now, is that one of the last things that she did was she did a cameo in the I forget if it was Apple. I think Apple TV did this. I'm not sure if it was them, might have been someone else, but they did this Harriet the Spy animated.
Yeah, I'm just seeing that on her wiki right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. So apparently she was kind of like one of the side characters. So it was like they found a way to work her in. So that was like one of the last. So it brings it really full circle to like what we know. I think everyone kind of knew her from, and she died very young. It was medical complications, a whole messy thing. But it's sad to see her go at that young. Like 39 is not the age, man.
No, that's fucking 5 years older than me, which is genuinely kind of scary.
Okay, don't bum everyone out, man.
I'm sorry.
We got enough death here, and then we're gonna get to the one that's gonna hit you hard.
Yeah. I just looked her up, and so we lost Lynn Marie Stewart. The big role for her is going to be Bonnie Kelly from It's Always Sunny, Charlie's adoring mother. But then also, it looks like she had a lot of...
Tiki, the other big role.
Yeah.
Miss Yvonne from Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Of course. Yeah.
So I got to be honest, I completely forgot about it. I had no idea that was,
always sad when we lose people kind of connected to that sort of like 80s cult puppet world, which I think she was very much a part of. Yeah, definitely an icon for sure. With It's Always Sunny, I think she. I just saw that she was only in like 16 episodes of It's Always Sunny, which honestly, like, I think that's really impressive because she really leaves an impact in those episodes. You know, like I really felt like she was more of like kind of like a reoccurring like regular character.
Just the fact that she was paired with Mac's mother and just the two.
Well, we'll talk about that the the sitcom episode that's on the latest season that I watched.
Yeah. Hey, we'll put a pin in that, but yeah, she was a champ, man.
Okay. All right. So let's see. So we're scratching the Kathleen Kennedy stuff, right, Dragon? Because it's basically yeah. Little Blue. We don't really have a lot to say about Roberto Orci. We just he's a name that I kind of know. Like I definitely am familiar with seeing his name floating around with the Transformers movies and the Star Trek movies. Dragon and I just don't really know a lot about the guy, so we're not really going to cover him too deeply, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And just we just got a lot of news. So all right. So let's get into some Oscars, Dragon.
All right.
Did you watch it?
Yes. What do you think of? But this is my Super Bowl. Of course, I watched.
Okay. Well, fair enough. So how good was the Conan O'Brien bit? The opening with the substance, like going into Demi Moore's back.
Oh, it was creepy as all get up, but it was good. That's exciting. Coco nailed it. What can we just say that collectively? Coco did a really good job hosting.
He did. Absolutely. I will say that this was a really unpredictable, crazy award season. The Amelia Perez situation of it all. By the end of it, it was pretty obvious that Honora was going to pretty much sweep. I'm happy with Honora. I think. Did you know that Sean Baker tied Walt Disney for the most amount of Oscars won in a single night with 4?
No, I didn't know that.
Because he edited Honora too. So he won for directing, producing, screenplay, and editing.
He's going to need a big shelf.
Right. Let's see. Some other bits that I really liked. I love the bit with Adam Sandler towards the beginning.
I was very pleased to see Deadpool on the Oscar stage. I was very happy about that. So God bless Conan O'Brien. Just God bless him.
Chalamet.
I think the gag of the night was
fucking the John Lithgow bit killed me. Dragon.
He didn't. Okay, here's the thing. Did I miss anything? Did we see that bit? Like, did someone get played off?
No, and Adrian Brody needed it.
Yeah,
Adrian Brody needed discipline.
We needed. I know that's the thing. I was really that's
Adrian Brody, man. Jesus Christ. The funny thing is, like,
he's been doing this at all the award shows.
Yeah, Timothy Chalamet. He won Best Actor in SAG, and we should have seen it with Brody. Absolutely. People gave Timothy Chalamet so much shit for his SAG speech when basically his SAG speech was just like, I really respect the craft and I want to get as good as it as I can. And people were like, ooh, that Chalamet, what an ego. And then meanwhile, you got motherfucker Brody over here being like, please stop the music. I've been up here before.
See, that's yeah.
I'm just like, Brody. not a great look, Adrian.
Well, at least he didn't hit anyone.
True. Let's see.
I wonder if do you think anyone's ever dropped the Oscar by accident?
Probably.
Because I've heard people like I think it was Don Adams once. He had like the Emmy, and you have like the pointy the Emmys are.
Right.
So if he won a lot for
the Emmys are genuine weapons, dude.
That's what I'm saying. So like I think it was Don Adams this happened to, where basically he had like he was kind of leaning on it by accident, so he was kind of like trickling blood because it accidentally got him under the chin while he was kind of falling asleep with the thing or something.
To be honest with you, I think one of the bits that worked for me the most, I love the whole bit with the we're just going to combine 1,000 smartphones and just put them together into a big screen and people can go and watch it. It's a stream house. And then I love Marty's cameo, Scorsese's cameo there. That was awesome. I love the Ben Stiller production design bit. Let's see. As far as winners go, I was really excited to see I'm Still Here win over Emilia Perez because fuck Emilia Perez, frankly. Other than that, I feel like it pretty much went about how we expected it to. Like, honestly, there wasn't any real big surprises here. I was happy to see Dune take away the 2 minor technical awards it did win. I was really happy to see The Substance take best makeup, even though by the end of this award season, I was more rooting for it to be more over Mikey Madison, even though I do think that Mikey Madison probably had the better performance. I just think seeing to me more would have been cool to see. Yeah, I don't know, Colby. Was Flo really an upset? I kind of feel like the momentum was on Flo. Yes, and then Dragon, did you hear about Hulu cutting the stream?
I did hear about that, yeah.
Which is ridiculous. I was watching it on TV, so I didn't experience.
Yeah, I DVR'd it so I could fast forward to the boring parts.
Oh, and let's get into that, the boring parts, because there were fucking boring parts. Jesus Christ. What was with that James Bond montage, Dragon?
You know, here's the thing with the James Bond. Okay. I think it started really cool, like the whole thing where we had we had the actual clips, and then we saw like the thing where honestly. Well, we had like the Bond, the Bond guys just they did the full line with all the Bonds, and then we kind of see, the Bond dancers, like the dance. It could have just ended there, like, okay, a little dance going on, but then it's like we bridge into all the James Bond songs, and it just drags on. It's the whole thing's kind of in bad taste because of what Amazon buying Bond.
Right.
So it's very cringy. However. So a few things I wanted to highlight.
Okay.
I love the LAFD gag.
That was fun. That was a really, really good way to honor the firefighters and then also have them in on the joke at the same time.
Conan O'Brien stuck in a tree again.
It's happened 3 times.
That's what I'm saying. Conan's adorable. But also, I think the In Memoriam, the song choice, they did a really good job on the In Memoriam this year.
Mm-hmm. My one thing though is that I think the Quincy Jones tribute was nice, but here's the thing: is that we cut the best original song performances, which I'm not necessarily complaining about this year. Especially we had just an incredibly dull selection of best original song nominees, but we're just getting the James Bond montage and the Quincy Jones montage. It's we're not saving time. We're just adding more shit. We're just adding other padding. It's at least with the best original songs, they are nominees. You know what I mean? It's so I think just as far as I was optimistic about how we were going to use our time when we did open with the John Lithgow bit. But man, by the end, I do think that this was one of the more time-wasty Oscars in recent memory, honestly.
Yeah. I guess real quick, a few things I wanted to respond to. I think Flo was an upset, but mind you, I haven't seen Flo yet.
It's on Max.
I'm gonna get to it. All right. The point being,
I don't love it, so
it was a busy month. Regardless, I don't know. I was really rooting for the Wild Robot, man. I tell you. But unfortunately,
I was ready for the Wild Robot to win sound, actually.
Well, that too. Honestly, that too, and that came up. I was thinking, at least give it sound, and it did.
Well, I just think it would be cool to give it sound because, so rarely do animated movies get nominated in anything other than score and animated feature. Okay,
this is going to sound awful. When they presented the Oscar for Best Animated Picture, okay, here's the thing. Andrew Garfield, he lost his mother. I forget if it was this year or the year before. He lost his mother, and the fact that his mother really adored Goldie Hawn. I thought that was a really nice thing. With all the sweet things they say in the Goldie Hawn, it's a really nice moment between them.
Yeah,
feels a little ill-timed for the Best Animated Feature Oscar, though. I don't know.
A little bit, yeah.
It's a little and we're going from this sweet sentiment to Best Animated Picture. It just feels a little
right. As far as presenters go, I really like that we ended on When Harry Met Sally reunion.
I thought that was, and the fact was the original, the best Oscar.
I used to work here.
Seriously, the best Oscar host, and I thought that was a really nice gesture on
Bring
Cohen's
back
part.
Billy Crystal, dude. I'd love to see him host again.
Yeah. Anyway, also of all the wins, I was very happy your boy won. I was very happy Kieran Culkin won.
Well, I mean that was pretty much a given. He's won literally everything throughout the season. But yeah, it was nice though. It was a nice.
He had a really nice speech and everything. It was good.
Yeah,
Plus,
yeah.
I love that Downey Jr. gave it to him. That was even better.
For sure.
Anyway, okay.
All right. Okay, next up on the news. Speaking of Lithgow, was that intentional?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, I really hope that we get some moments from Lithgow as Dumbledore where he is just like doing the disappointed stare. Look, I just want to say for the record, I'm not excited about this new Harry Potter thing. I think it makes some level of sense to like do the series as, you know, as seasons of television, but obviously we have the fuck J.K. Rowling factor. That's neither here nor there. I don't want to get into that. But I will say that casting wise, so far so good. I like the fact that we're not just restricting it to British people, honestly, because I feel like that kind of I mean, the cast for the original was iconic, but the thing is, like, you're not going to be able to recreate that cast. So be opening it up to non-British people, I feel like does a good job of kind of like, we can at least differentiate this cast. And I think Lithgow is going to be a good Dumbledore, and I think it's going to be a different Dumbledore.
I don't know, Tiki. Only British people are magic, apparently.
Right.
I don't know. We're kind of going against the grain on that one, but no, seriously, Lithgow's great. I'm not interested in this project at all, but I root for the man.
And yeah, Little Blue, I do know what you're saying. And honestly, I think especially with all the branding in the parks, like if you go to the parks, it's all like all those attractions have the original cast in them. I think it's kind of Paige Novak Dragon. We're kind of muddying the waters by having a new cast, you know?
Oh, yeah. Muddying the waters.
We've got so much use out of that.
I
do think it's cool casting. I'm not gonna lie, it does make me want to at least check out the first season a little bit more than I was. We'll see how it goes. You know, I'm not super optimistic about this new Potter show. It's kind of in the realm of like the last Airbender show for me, where it's like if it does get really good reviews, I'll check it out. If it's one of those things where the reviews are just mid, I'll be like, well, I don't need to waste my time on that. And that's how I feel about the last Airbender show. So
I got a really dumb joke for you.
Uh-huh.
If Kim Wexler and Paige Novak were shipped, do you know what their shipping name would be?
Oh, God. Oh, no. What?
Kim Novak.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
All right. That's right, folks. The hot actress, Kim Novak.
Good job. Okay.
Anyway.
All right. So next up we have, this was pretty much, I think we already kind of loosely touched on this a little bit, but...
well, it was speculative, but now it's officially confirmed.
Yeah. So Marvel is giving a one-shot to The Punisher, and it's being written by Jon Bernthal. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. I think that The Punisher is a character that kind of like, I feel like he's sort of the character that kind of like was made to be in a one-shot kind of format. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder if, now mind you, we won't really know this until we get, you know, the first season of Born Again, but I wonder if maybe they could play it both ways, because we saw, even with the Punisher show, episode 1 essentially is a short film about the Punisher, which is
right. I mean, I think the Punisher works great as a supporting character, especially a Daredevil supporting character.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as telling standalone Punisher stories, I think we saw in the series, like I did think season 2 was a little bit of an improvement over season 1, but I just don't think that long form storytelling works great for the Punisher. I just feel like he's just such a lone man on a mission type, where you can have him interact with other characters and have it be compelling. But I think the real hook of it is just kind of that like sort of solitary angle that you have with him. You know what I mean?
And the other problem, here's the thing with the Punisher, even just in comics and storytelling in general, the reason like a serialized story with the Punisher is really tricky to do is that he's a character who necessarily, very traditionally, kills his opponent very much first encounter, so it's kind of hard to like revisit that or drag that out for a season unless it's like a jigsaw, which you can only really do one time, and then we do it for 2 seasons. So anyway,
right.
But that's the thing. This I wonder if this is going to be shown. I think this is going to be a catch-up kind of thing where we're going to see in a one shot we would see what has Frank Castle been doing between Punisher show and Born Again. Like let's kind of catch up with the guy. Like let's basically a prelude to Daredevil Born Again. But again, the Punisher, he can be really standalone, in which you can. It's the reason, like Chris Stoddard noted early, he made so many great Punisher fan films. Punisher lends itself to fan films. He's great in the short form. You can do any story you want with the Punisher in short form. So this, no matter what they do, this is probably going to be really good, especially if Bernthal is really driving it creatively. So
totally.
I got a good feeling about it, and I hope, honestly, my hope, and this is not like condemning like a Punisher show or anything. It just sounds like there was speculation about a show, and we've confirmed, like, no, instead of a show, we're doing this. I think that's the right move because we already had the Punisher show. We don't really need to revisit that. Just bring him in Daredevil whenever we see fit and then give him a short.
All right. Teddy is asking me to read his great suggestion for an Oscar host. So he's saying, I want Nathan Fielder as the host of the Oscars because the awkwardness would be beautiful.
I would like John Mulaney.
I agree. Dragon, I'm on a big John Mulaney kick. We'll get there when we get to TV.
If we know anything about Mulaney can do a toast and a monologue.
Right. Nathan Fielder would be interesting, though, Dragon. I think you have not watched the Nathan Fielder stuff, have you?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be your thing, but the cringe is definitely there. Yeah.
Honestly, look, for the Oscars, the directions I would want to go in is, again, Billy Crystal would be fantastic.
Honestly, Nathan Fielder would kind of be like the modern day equivalent to like Kaufman hosting the Oscars.
Oh yeah, which that's the thing. I don't think we'd want. As I said, you got Billy Crystal, maybe you're gonna John Mulaney. Those would be the top two options.
I would be down to just have Conan come back too. Honestly,
well, I think Conan would be great if he came. Yeah. I'm just throwing it out there, like if we wanted someone else, and then of course, I mean, I would. Look, I don't know if they're going to do it. This would have been the year to do it. Obviously, they didn't because we had Conan, but Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. I'm just saying, just
this would have been the year to do that.
I know. So I mean, now it's going to be kind of.
Of course, the ever popular Muppets hosting the Oscars.
Oh, that would be there. See, no, the Oscars will never be that cool, Tiki. This is just blatantly. They're never
because the Muppets are very much at the forefront of the pop culture zeitgeist. Dragon.
You're darn right.
All right.
That would bring him back. We had a whole Academy Awards hosted by Muppets.
Oh man, Co Gias comes out with like an out of left field pick. He says Steve Burns, the original Blues Clues.
Co Gias always brings up.
I mean, it'd be interesting. All right. Teddy says, "Speak for yourself, Dragon. I would have loved to have seen Kaufman host the Oscars. Imagine." All right. Well, we'll get into more Kaufman stuff a little later on. Okay, Dragon, you take the lead on this whole My Adventures with thing because this is news to me.
Okay, so James Gunn had some sort of I don't know if it's a press release or what. He had some sort of thing where there was like unveilings of DC projects, and the animated projects were the only things that were concretely, we learned stuff we didn't know about already. So 3 DC series, animated series, were announced, and this is like under like the green light of James Gunn. So one is My Adventures with Green Lantern. Now this, from what we understand, is a spin-off of My Adventures with Superman, hence the title. So we're going to be exploring Green Lantern, presumably in the same universe.
So, but this is not the Gunn universe, though, right?
No. This is just like literally like the My Adventures of Superman show, but we would be introducing Green Lantern.
One thing that I'm going to criticize Gunn for with the DC stuff, I do think he's got a little bit too much like. Well, we've got multiple Batmans going on, and we've got multiple, we've got the animated stuff that is in canon. We've got other animated stuff that isn't in canon.
Well, it feels like My Adventures is kind of like
the Paige Novak quote.
Muddying the waters.
I mean, I love him as a director. I'm just like, I just feel like we'll just time has yet to be proven on whether or not his kind of everything in the kitchen sink approach to the continuity.
I mean, here's the thing. From what I understand, like, I don't know if it just counts for James Gunn approved stuff, or if like the signature of like the stuff that is fully like in his universe has like that opening of Superman like bursting through the chains. Like that's kind of like that's why he's going on record saying that. So I don't know if that just means his
I
stamp of
would like
approval.
if every animated thing that's in continuity has like an animated James Gunn in the intro.
Well, that would be great.
I think that's something they could swing too. I think that's a bit of branding they could swing.
I mean, again, if it's like in direct connection with Creature Commandos, I think they absolutely do it. So by that logic, yes, and I think that'd be a good idea. But I don't know about that. At the very least, the whole Superman opening where he's like bursting through the chains, that might be the signifier. We don't have enough stuff to really judge that yet to see how true that is. All we know is some projects he's announced. So we have my Adventure of the Green Lantern, which is presumably an offshoot of my Adventures.
I think the Green Lantern, like, I mean, obviously we're getting the Lanterns TV show. I think it's a property that does lend itself more to TV than movies because there's just parts to it.
Yeah. There's a Starfire animated series announced. People like Starfire, so that's kind of cool.
I like Starfire. I'm not sure, like, I don't know enough about the character and her lore to know if she could like carry a whole show.
I mean, that's the thing. We're gonna have to see. At the very least, it might be a way of like kind of broaching the Teen Titans without like literally doing a Teen Titans movie. So I mean, at the very least, I
already have the Teen Titans movie, Dragon.
That's what I mean.
No, I'm kidding. I'm fucking kidding, Dragon. That is not a Teen Titans movie. I like that movie more than you, but it's not a Teen Titans.
No. I mean, they actually did announce a new Teen Titans movie that is happening.
Oh, okay. Well, I was talking about Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
No, you rube, no. Okay, so seriously, honestly, with Starfire, I imagine the story they could maybe milk for a season would be the origin of Starfire.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole, like her, kind of, and maybe like the kind of the fish out of water stuff. That by a certain point, for ending up with the plan, maybe it ends with the interaction with the Teen Titans. I'm just spitballing. Anyway, the other one I think you're gonna like. This is more kind of lighthearted kid fare. It's DC Superpowers, which is borrowing off the toy line's name. And essentially is it's kind of like I think it's like a high school set thing, or Martian Manhunter's like the principal of the school. It's kind of like the Jeffrey Brown stuff. It's kind of like it's really.
I don't know why you think that would be like in particular. That would be up my alley.
Sorry, I forgot Dead Inside. Anyway,
I'm just saying, like with animation, I typically like to engage in animation where it's like I'm not instantly reminded that it's made for children.
I don't know. It just sounded kind of cute and funny. I don't know. But,
fair enough. Maybe. I mean, Martian Manhunter is the principal. That sounds fun, I guess.
All right, anyway, okay. The point being, it's kind of a fun-sounding project. Regardless, we have 3 animated shows that have been announced, so we'll see how they go. At the very least, the front runner in terms of my excitement, My Adventures of Green Lantern. That one, because I love My Adventures of Superman. I'm so dialed into that. And they're saying it's a spin-off of that, and it does open the door to maybe other spin-offs with other heroes. I don't know. It's interesting that Green Lantern is the next because everyone and their mother is like, My Adventures with Batman. My Adventures with Batman. Come on.
Yeah, but we don't. But there's so much animated Batman media. We don't.
I know. I'm just saying. It's just really. It's something that I think we're all just kind of. It'd just be really cool just to see that Superman interact with that Batman. But I'm just.
Anyway. We'll just have that Batman in My Adventures with Superman.
Well, yeah, I'm not.
Show.
Look, you're right. We don't necessarily need a Batman spin. I'm saying the very least, like for him to. I'm eager for him to appear in that universe at some point. That's all.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So speaking of animated stuff, Dragon, this is a little bit more up my alley. We have Team Avatar, the real Avatar people, not the Netflix team, has announced. I'm really excited about this. This sounds super promising. Avatar 7 Havens. Now, this is going to be... I love how we already have like a very set number of episodes. That really kind of like gets me excited right off the bat that these guys have a plan. We have 2 13-episode seasons. Dragon, you want to hit him with the premise?
Yeah, so basically the next Avatar, of course, the way the Avatar works, it's a reincarnation cycle. After every Avatar kind of like kicks the bucket, it passes on to the next one. And, it's in the cycle. So we had, Aang and then Korra. And now we have an Earthbender. I'm not sure what her name is. I don't think they've given her a name on her.
I don't think we have a name yet.
We have a female Earthbender who has a twin. Now, I don't think they're both Avatar. I think just she's the Avatar. And basically, this is like a post-apocalyptic setting. So something like a
I'm the Avatar. You got to deal with it.
Exactly. Sorry. So this is like a post-apocalyptic kind of like they call it like a cataclysmic event has happened. So I'm thinking like No Man's Land with Batman. Honestly, when I hear that,
well, it sounds like basically what it sounds like is that the spirit world has like essentially like molded into the real world, like in kind of almost like a Lovecraftian kind of way, almost.
Which Korra kind of started. So this is kind of so it's basically this Avatar picking up where kind of the mess that Korra potentially left unintentionally,
right?
Which could be really interesting. So now here's the thing I want to mention though, in terms of when this is expected as well. So this was announced for the 20th anniversary of Avatar, by the way, because that's what this February was.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, it just. Avatar Studio is promising all these fantastic things I would very much love to see, but I think maybe we got like a bit of concept art with this, like one like little. I don't even know how real like concept art is. That's the thing. It's always promises. Like this will be after the Aang movie comes out, and it's like
I see what you're saying.
It's just I'm hearing all these fantastic promises, but not a lick of evidence, and I'm just getting worried about that because they're promising there's going to be a Korra movie and an Avatar Kyoshi movie and this and that, and it'll slice, it'll dice. It's like I don't believe any of this.
Right.
And it's like we got Mike DiMartino and Brian Konietzko. They're never going to be done with Avatar. It's like okay. This could be fantastic if it's not a fever dream. It just sounds like we're just going to hope people are going to forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so fingers crossed. But
materialize, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
like I said, it does sound promising, and I
don't even know how we're going to watch this because it sounds like they're not saying it's going to be on Netflix, but
probably Paramount Plus.
Well, that I don't know. Maybe they haven't said anything.
Yeah,
which baffles me. How do we not even know where it's going to air on?
I mean, I imagine it's going to be Paramount Plus.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. Trailers. Yeah, we got a lot this month. Let's see. Teddy says, I hope she's as different to Korra as Korra was to Aang.
Well, yeah, she's got a sibling. A twin sibling.
And yeah, I agree. I hope we don't just get another, like, super headstrong character like Korra was. I do want to see someone who's maybe... Be interesting to see an Earthbender who's maybe a little bit more, tapped into her emotional side.
I think it's interesting we're doing another female Avatar again. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's kind of interesting that we're doing that kind of twice in a row,
Yeah. All right, so trailers. Fantastic Four. I will admit, I've done a little bit of a 180 on this. It still looks good. I honestly think the thing that I'm kind of walking away from this trailer the most hyped on is the Giacchino score. I think the Giacchino score is going to kind of make this movie. The first time I saw this trailer, Dragon, I was giddy about the thing is doing chef stuff. Now I'm kind of like, oh, the thing is doing chef stuff. I kind of feel like they're leaning too much into the actor. It's basically Richie as the thing, I don't know. I kind of feel like I've done a little bit of a turnaround on that. From my initial.
I mean, look, the thing does like to cook in the Fantastic Four.
Does he? Okay.
It's not he's always.
I do think his interaction with the robot is fucking adorable.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That kind of stuff. That stuff the Thing would do. Yeah. For example, the Thing in the comics, he'd always stuff his Aunt Petunia's recipe, so he's always about cooking and perfecting the stuff. So that feels on brand.
Okay, that tracks. Maybe that's why they cast him.
I mean, maybe. So I guess
I am looking forward to Cousin Thing. Oh my god! At some point, Ben has got to call Reed cousin.
No. Anyway, I am so ridiculously sold on First Steps. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Giacchino score is great. We get a little hint of Galactus, the period setting.
I honestly think the trailer has a very similar vibe to the Superman trailer. It's just very triumphant.
I heard a very fascinating theory about this movie. that
Okay.
I think might has a good chance of it. Now, Kevin Smith kind of posited this, and I can't help but think, man, that's a really good idea.
Mhm.
There's a theory because we see, like they're in the middle of some action in the trailer, and the theory is like with Galactus coming, got kind of some action in the trailer. It does maybe seem that what if the Fantastic Four lost at the end of this movie and they escaped their crumbling universe and ended up in the MCU proper?
Like Rick and Morty love potion style.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Dragon, I think that's pretty much the direction we're going, honestly, because we need to get them into the canon timeline.
That's the thing. In Galactus, we have to get them there somehow. And I imagine my theory, honestly, my theory with the Fantastic Four and how we would kind of go about things is that any time I've always factored like how the Fantastic Four would work in the MCU is that the event that is their origin is them trying to unlock basically the technology we have in Guardians of the Galaxy with the jump points. Like if they're going to space, they're trying to do jump points. I'm not saying they're necessarily going to do that. What I'm getting at is like maybe doing the quantum tunnel thing, which again had some ties to the microverse from the Fantastic Four. It does make you wonder, like, could that be their salvation, like with Ant-Man? Like they use that somehow, and that's how they end up kind of in the proper ends. They're messing around with jumping through time. Like Reed Richards figures something out in the last seconds that basically saves their bacon from the collapsing universe.
Sure.
And then basically in the MCU they bring an optimism with them. Like these guys are from like a happy-go-lucky time where not everything was fine until that giant purple guy showed up.
Exactly.
The other giant purple guy, the giant purple guy with the hat.
Oh God.
Just purple is the color of doom in the MCU.
In Marvel, yes, absolutely.
Yep.
We got some speculation about John Malkovich. Is he officially in the cast?
Yeah. We saw him in the trailer, Tiki.
Okay, right.
Yeah. We knew he was in it. Now we don't know 100% if he's going to play. Chances are he's going to play.
Little Blue says let's hope John Malkovich is playing the Red Ghost. Kogias is saying I'm hoping he plays Mole Man.
Those are the two theories because I think he looks a lot with the white hair. He looks like Red Ghost, but they could always go a different direction, make him Mole Man. It's possible.
Mm-hmm. I want to see Mole Man just because I feel like that'd tie into the Underminer and be funny.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I'm very sold on this. I can't wait for it. I really do think this and the thing we're gonna get tomorrow are the MCU salvation. That's what I'm hoping for, but we'll see.
Oh my God! Oh, I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, I hate that we have to wait till 9 o'clock, but I'm excited because I was I forgot about that. Like, oh no, wait, no,
right. Like no, it's not gonna be on midnight.
That was gonna be my whole day Tuesday.
Oh God. Okay, Andor season 2. Holy God, this is a terrible trailer. I'm still looking forward to Andor season 2, and there's some like individual moments here that work. Whoever chose this song needs to be fired, Dragon. This is like very much a Simpsons like, gee, I hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
Well, we know who picked the song, but then she's still staying there.
Did she really? We don't
know. I'm kidding. I'm just saying with the whole like out the door back in. I'm saying anyway.
No, I don't know. What do you think of the song? It's just ridiculous, right?
It felt very different than what I was expecting from Andor, but I mean, I don't know.
Frankly, Little Blue, I'm sorry, I don't know where you're seeing the praise. I feel like people might be excited about the actual footage, but I don't see anyone who's like, yes, that song choice was impeccable. Awesome trailer editing.
Well, I think that's what he's talking about is the fact that it's. Here's the thing. I think just overall,
my hot take, I kind of liked it.
I wonder if the trailer song has any like inclination what the tone's going to be for season 2. That's the question.
I think it's more so just like the
tone for
season 1 was not very advertiser friendly, so Disney was like, no, make it look like it's like, yeah, we're starting a rebellion. Fuck yeah. I don't know. Just not a great trailer, generally speaking.
Speaking of not so great trailers.
Oh God, yeah, Jurassic World Rebirth. Fucking just, I just keep.
I know, Tig, it was everything you wanted to be.
Coming back for more, man. I fucking did my whole like little trailer reaction and everything.
Who's the little dinosaur boy from Mitchell's vs. Machines looking for his dino fix? It's this guy. That guy, huh?
My spirit animal.
Yeah.
Seriously, that character, if I were to get another tattoo besides Stitch, it might be that character.
Come on, you can't adorn your body with that guy. Come on.
I know. It'd probably be Donnie Thornberry.
Just get a shirt with the kid. Would it kill you? Just buy a shirt with the kid
If
on
I can
it.
find a shirt with him.
You can always, trust me, you can find a shirt with the kid on it.
All right, anyways. So yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, the one thing I will say with this trailer, like, I think people have been giving the cast a lot of shit. I think that they look better than Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard. I think those two were like charisma vacuums in the Jurassic World movies. They just were not great leads. I feel like at the very least, I think, people like God damn it, the Wicked guy. What is his name? I'm blanking on
Jeff
name.
Goldblum?
No, not Jeff Goldblum.
You said the Wicked guy. He was in Wicked.
I know Goldblum was in Wicked. Who was the other? Colby, help me out here.
Jesus.
Why am I blanking on this dude's name? Jonathan Bailey. There we go. Thank you very much, Colby. Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Bailey, I think he did a great job in Wicked. I think he was a standout performance in that movie, and I think he'll do a good job here. Frankly, I think ScarJo is fucking sleepwalking through this, though. ScarJo is the performance I'm very...
On paper, it sounds like a good idea. Put Scarlett Johansson in your movie, but...
On paper, yes, but...
Yeah. Also, Mahershala Ali.
She's just done with franchise stuff, and I think she's just very much viewing franchise stuff as just, like, a paycheck, and like this is very clearly a paycheck role for her. I don't think she's going to do a good job here.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to be wasting Mahershala Ali again.
I have a feeling too. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it looks like he's just going to be the sacrificial black man.
Like, why can't we just have Mahershala Ali be the lead and be really cool?
Right, yeah.
Can't we just have him be like, I don't know, like the dino archaeologist who's like in the phrase just a really cool guy or something? Can't we do that?
Apparently not. Yeah, the mutant dinosaur behind the glass is very concerning. I don't know. This movie's going to be a goddamn mess, and I'm still there on opening day because I'm
you sap. God,
I don't know what to tell you.
I'm embarrassed to be your friend right now. I gotta be honest. I can't believe this guy's my friend. I don't believe it. Where is my life now?
I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah, he's a masochist for the bygone Spielberg era. Look at him. Anyway, right. So next,
yeah, a movie that actually has a ton of potential. It's kind of crazy how the directing team here, or I'm assuming directing producing team, it's kind of like our worlds colliding. It's the Safdie brothers and the Won't You Be My Neighbor team.
Yep.
We're talking the Andy Kaufman documentary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dragon, honest to God, after seeing this trailer, this might be one of my most anticipated movies of the whole damn year. And you know what? You know what's a universal fact about this movie, Dragon? That we know one thing about this movie that's absolutely certain.
Yeah.
Tell them what it is.
Well, we we know
might not be the same thing that you're thinking.
No, that's the thing. I'm thinking of like an old reference. I don't know what you're
we know that it's not going to be nominated.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, sorry. Yeah. I thought you were reaching back to the Jim and Andy thing. That's what I was searching for. But yeah, you're right. We know no matter how good it is, I'm not going to get an Oscar.
It could be a goddamn masterpiece. It could be literally the best documentary ever made.
Could literally
better than Will Be My Neighbor.
With the Oscars, by the way, I'm still really peeved. Just like all those nominations, I was sitting there seething. Like,
well, we'll talk about Sugarcane. That's the one Oscar-nominated documentary that I actually managed to get to. So
just still, it's like we literally had a movie that we made people walk, and we still can't even get a nomination.
Yep.
Literally,
if it was gonna be a year that we got an entertainment-based documentary in, it would have been Superman. But no, of course,
essentially made Tiny Tim walk again, and we can't even get it. Anyway,
it's all gonna be like war and political shit.
Anyway, but yeah, so Teddy seems to not like me, but I'm just going to throw this out there. I do look. Huge fan of Andy Kaufman. He's fantastic. I wasn't out earlier on. That wasn't like a bar against Andy Kaufman. I just meant like I don't think the world's ready for Andy Kaufman hosted, Oscars. All right, but regardless, this documentary, this could be really good. I mean, we already saw Jim and Andy, which is like the most meta documentary you're ever going to see. But this
wouldn't
is
Andy Kaufman hosting the Oscars be like a very intriguing premise for like a faux biopic? Like a what if biopic?
Well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, Andy Kaufman like hosting the Oscars is a great idea, but it's like it's only for a very select group of like people who are like the curious bunch versus like like a general audience would like to see.
Right. Code Geass, yeah, you should in the words of Pleakley, you should educate yourself with this documentary.
Educate yourself.
Educate yourself. All right.
But yeah, seriously, I just love when Morgan Neville puts a documentary together, and I know the Safdies are involved in this, but it seems like the Safdies must really love Andy Kaufman. That's why I have to imagine why they're taking part in this.
I mean, the Safdies relish in the uncomfortable, and
so that's the thing. It feels
that as far as comedy goes,
it feels up their alley. So
I will say, as someone like Dragon, I'm not sitting here saying that I'm ever going to be a pro. I'm not delusional. I know I'm not ever going to be a pro, but as someone who's casually dabbling in like open mic stand-up comedy, that makes me look forward to this even more, because Andy Kaufman is one of those figures where it's like let's just put it this way, Dragon. I watched a stand-up competition at the theater that I do open mic at, and there were 6 people involved. Only one of them did a set that wasn't primarily revolving around sex jokes. Like, yeah, she let me fuck her in the ass. Like, that kind of humor. And it's like, so me as a comedian, like, I want to aspire to be more than that. I know I'm not going to be Andy Kaufman, because no one's going to be Andy Kaufman. But I'm saying, like, Andy Kaufman is the kind of person where it's like, he is the type of, like, I want to challenge the format, and I'm not saying like I'm not gonna be like a trailblazer. I'm not even trying to be a professional at all. I'm not even trying to get paid for this shit. But in the open mic sets that I do have, however many of them do materialize, I do want to push the boundaries beyond just like, yeah, isn't it funny that sex is a thing?
That's AT. You've hit a benchmark when you can go on stage and just eat ice cream. People are gonna watch you.
Right.
You can bring a Victrola. You can bring like a record player on stage and do Mighty Mouse. Like, there you go.
I'll just rip off the Mighty Mouse bit wholesale.
Yeah. All right. Do your imitation of Greg from Succession. You can do it.
Yeah, Nathan Fielder is probably the closest thing we have to a modern day Andy Kaufman. Honestly,
from what I hear, that sounds true. I hear the Nathan Fielder guys a lot like Kaufman.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, and finally, Jesus fucking Christ, Shrek 5.
We had a teaser for Shrek 5.
Here's the thing, Dragon. I haven't seen enough of the new animation style to, like, freak out and say it's, like, terrible one way or another. I think people are kind of jumping the gun on that a little bit. The memes, though. The memes, the fucking, like, this is like 2017, Dragon. Did we time travel back in time to the year that Ralph Breaks the Internet came out?
I mean, Tiki, believe it or not, I mean, the Shrek memes they've never stopped.
Dragon, I understand that, but that's not the sole thing that I want Shrek 5 to be about.
Well, I really think that's more of like a teaser trailer. Like, it's basically an acknowledgement. Shrek's been away for a long time, and the thing that's kind of revitalized him is the weird interest in Shrek, and it's kind of an acknowledgement from, okay, finally, folks, after all the memes and the desire for more Shrek, we are getting more Shrek, and he is reacting
don't mind
to
how in your face the trailer is with the meme stuff.
All I'm saying is I don't think the memes are actually going to be in the final. I think it's only a teaser thing. It's not what I would have done.
I don't think this stuff is going to be in the trailer, but I also don't think it's a good indication. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was a great movie specifically because it didn't rely on like the pop culture zeitgeist. Like the original Puss in Boots movie was honestly one of the more forgettable movies in the DreamWorks canon. So it's like I don't want this to be super self-referential.
Well, Tiki, that's the thing. Based on Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I have to assume that they're going to actually treat the material to make it have it meld with that. They're really going to have to step up their game, and because of that, we're not going to get meme humor or stuff in kind of along those lines in this new Shrek movie. I have to assume that. I have to assume for
I
that
hope you're right.
I'm just saying, going off the logic of okay, to measure up to the universal acclaim that Last Wish got, they're gonna have to gonna have to avoid that. But
Do you
their
think
way
they're
of
going to
work.
try with this movie, or do you think that they're just because my fear is that they're just viewing Shrek as like an opportunity to print money, and they're
Well,
not going to put the effort into it
okay. Here's
like
what
they
I'm
did
getting.
with The Last Wish.
Well, if I can finish, here's what
Go
here's what
ahead.
I'm
I'm
getting
sorry.
at. Okay, so again, it feels like best case scenario, the meme thing is just acknowledged in this teaser just to get in there, and I can respect it as an acknowledgement of this is kind of what revitalized Shrek and brought him back. So okay, you have it's a tip of the hat to it. That said, despite all my hopes for the whole Last Wish thing, because Last Wish builds up Shrek in a very magical kind of like, oh man, it's like a well-worn friend that we haven't seen in a long while. We're heading to the shore. This could be good. The animation style isn't necessarily scaring me off, but like Shrek's daughter
I think
growing
people
up,
are overreacting to the animation
they're
style.
they're overreacting because there's not
This
enough
is
to
not
really
an ugly Sonic situation, guys.
there's not there's not enough footage to really get a good feel for the animation style. All we see is they've updated the models. The problem, I think, is that again, mind you, it's barely based on anything. The thing that fills me with fear is that we're doing the teen daughter thing with Shrek, which yes, the kids would have grown up.
Right.
The most like
I do
Zendaya
like
as
that we have
Shrek.
Zendaya. I mean, if we're gonna do a teen daughter, Zendaya is probably one of the more palatable people to do a character like that with.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Just the grown up, Zendaya daughter. I mean, it could go either way. I have a feeling Zendaya might be a cash in thing. That's what makes me afraid. Zendaya feels like kind of like
I mean,
a
she
Shrek
is.
cash.
She definitely is. She's a very, very popular person right now, and it is a cash in like cast stunt casting thing. I'm just saying that as far as like the actual performance, like Zendaya is not like literally like nails on the chalkboard the same way that Aquafina is. Like I'm not saying that they would have cast Aquafina. I'm just saying like Zendaya is the type of actress where it's like when she's cast in something, it is because of her popularity, but I also know she's not just going to phone it in.
I mean, basically, you have to imagine. I mean, it was with the kid growing up, the plot's going to be okay. It's gonna where's Shrek at now, and Shrek would be.
I mean, I've always wanted to see Father of the Bride with the Incredibles. That's always been
Mhm.
my dream. Incredibles 3. But I'm thinking maybe a Father of the Bride situation here.
I mean, maybe at the very least, Shrek dealing with me. I think it's going to be Shrek dealing with being over the hill,
Hmm.
like Shrek dealing with a midlife crisis. That feels like what it's going to be.
We'll see.
I don't know. All right.
All right, and that has been the news. Yeah. Let's see. Colby says Shrek's daughter is an edgy daughter who wants to go off and live her own life. Shrek is going to be an overprotective dad who tries to hold her back, but learns to let her live her own life. God.
Well, again,
So basically Ralph breaks the internet. If Ralph breaks the internet didn't have creepy undertones to
well, he
it.
said he's predicting what that is. He isn't. That's not
Yeah.
confirmed. That's just like what he assumes it's going to be.
All right. Okay, so yeah, let's move on to February 2025 movies. Finally, Captain America: Brave New World. It is perfectly adequate. It's not terrible, but it's not good. What about you, Dragon? What do you think?
So I was hyped for this one. A huge Cap fan. I love Mackie. I love Falcon Cap. I love what we did in Falcon in the Winter Soldier, with the exception of the villains. But it's regrettably the movie.
This movie made me long for Falcon and Winter Soldier, man.
Yeah. So that's my point too. So regrettably, the movie itself is a mixed bag. I really think, and I still hold true, I really think we should have let Malcolm Spellman, who was one of the many writers on this, I think we just should have let Malcolm Spellman be the sole writer on this, or at the very least, maybe one of two writers. And the other writer's purpose would be, okay, let's make sure the villains are good this time.
Yeah.
That's like the only note you need to give Malcolm Spellman. Because it feels like the movie was
This movie
playing.
essentially feels like the MCU tying up some loose ends in preparation for bigger stuff like Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
It essentially feels like a continuity cleanup movie.
I mean, it feels like because we didn't let Spellman it feels like Spellman had an idea for what he wanted to do after Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then things took forever, pandemics and strikes and et cetera, et cetera. And we finally get back on track with, oh yeah, that Captain America movie we were supposed to do, Malcolm. You come on forward. We have kind of like a preset visuals that we want and everything, so we're just going to lock you in there and we're going to fill in the blanks. And it just felt like because of that, we played it too safe. Where I can again, it feels like I don't. The fact that we had Hulk villains in this, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. Only because it piggybacks off where we left off with Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was all about super soldiers. And I think
Sure.
I think the path the movie should have focused on, or at least could have focused on, was Sam accepting the choice that he made of like, I'm electing not to use the super soldiers here, and what I have inside me is good enough, which connects to the fundamental Captain America idea of like good person underneath it all is more valuable than the super soldier serum in a bully or someone bigger. So, I think that could have been a core thing, or basically the fact that you have Sam Wilson, who's just a regular, the average Joe who's taken the mantle of Captain America, and he's going up against the insurmountable odds of a Red Hulk and so on. Like that, I think could have been cool. 'Cause I still get jazzed out of my mind with the whole "you want me? Come and get me." That's awesome to me. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Mackey's great. Also, the snake. All are unfortunately are very bland snake bad guys. Had they been done a little more,
Giancarlo, man, it's like Hollywood just will not let him be anything but this particular brand of character, and I'm so over it.
That said, I do want to say again, in a world where they had the snake cult bad guys at the Serpent Society, I know what their names. I was making fun of them. The Serpent Society. Had they been better, here's the thing: because in the comics, Falcon Cap did go up against the Serpent Society, and obviously, when they announced Captain America 3, that was the fake title, so that's kind of paying off the fake title. That's the idea. So Sidewinder and casting Giancarlo Esposito as a villain that could be specifically tied to Mackey's Captain America, in concept and honestly in what Carl's bringing to it in a very short capacity. That's pretty cool. It's pretty menacing. We get some cool fights out of them, and more so, even less the action.
No, I'm sorry, Dragon, but like for me, it's like Giancarlo just doing that same Gus Fring, but it has ceased to be intimidating. It has ceased to be interesting. I am so over it.
I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. I just liked it was less the action, more so. I just liked the scene of him having to strike a deal with this guy, and this guy having the upper hand, and one day they're gonna potentially meet up. I don't know. I thought he had screen presence. I want to be clear though. You're right. We underwrote all of his characterization and everything. It's out the window, which did not help. But I'm seeing the potential there was really, and getting Giancarlo in there, I did have a lot of people excited, but I don't know. The point being, we definitely need another draft of this script. There's a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of just potential we kind of flushed down the toilet. The biggest thing for me, and I've mentioned this many times before, I love Isaiah Bradley as a character. He was my favorite part of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I was geeking out about him throughout that show. We paid him off so fantastically. In this movie, I was still campaigning if we could have had a flashback, or better yet, with the Punisher.
I wish he would have had more to do in this movie. I think basically having him in the Bucky role was an interesting choice. That being said, I do think that the plot, one of the big problems, and I'm curious to get your take on this, Drake, because you're much more all in on this movie than I am, is that essentially a lot of the plot threads, especially the Isaiah Bradley stuff, are just kind of like regurgitated Winter Soldier.
So unfortunately, yeah, that's essentially one of the problems in the movie, where you're aping a lot of Winter Soldier. But here's what I'm saying. So Isaiah Bradley, again, the most interesting thing I wanted to see either in the movie in a flashback with a budget, or as a Marvel one-shot, if this Punisher thing goes over well, which I'm hoping happens, I would love to see Isaiah Bradley's flashback during the Korean War, where he basically becomes Captain America and he fights Bucky.
I want to see I could see that being an opening to this movie.
That's what I mean. I could have seen that either as the opening, and here's what I'm saying. If you will.
Work in Red Guardian, too, dude.
And Tiki, picture, if you will. Okay, picture if you will, a world where we open the movie on the Isaiah Bradley flashback, which we set up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? And then the crux of the movie. Here's to me the biggest problem with the movie with Isaiah Bradley is that there is absolutely no good reason he should be at the White House.
Yes, absolutely. Oh man,
Okay?
I felt that hard. It
And
really,
here's the way you fix that, okay? Very simple. You open the movie that fantastically, like we described, with the Isaiah Bradley flashback, and we have the thing being either Sam has convinced Ross or Ross is going out of his way trying to get on Sam's good side. Like, okay, look, we're going to undo the bad that we did to Isaiah Bradley. We're going to invite him as a guest to the White House, and then the bad stuff happens. You know, like the fact that he would bring him there, and maybe Isaiah Bradley's still not happy about it, but it's the fact that, like, that's how we would get him from point A to point B. That's the big jump of the movie. It then puts us down the whole Winter Soldier. Like, everyone laughing off, like, how could anyone be mind controlled? Hello?
Right.
It's just so the writing wasn't good. The performances, I feel the performances for the most part, like again,
Harrison
Mackie,
Ford was fucking bringing it, dude.
That's what I mean with Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie. They really brought it for the roles, and there's potential there. For example, the whole thing of adamantium rivaling.
I'm not gonna lie, my lizard brain definitely went off when I heard the word adamantium.
Yeah. So that's the thing. The thing that I really wanted to see explored is, okay, adamantium basically is a thing that could make us a superpower like Wakanda. That is an interesting idea, but we don't do anything with it.
I do like the fact that we actually use the Celestial.
Yeah. So that's, it's. And here's the thing: sometimes adamantium comes like a meteor from space, so having it be the Celestial is not a bad idea. It's okay. Like adamantium is not really nailed down exactly where it's basically synthesized, and it's synthesized in a lab sometimes, or sometimes it's a meteor, so you can play it either way. Point being, I'm already boring folks. Anyway, yeah, we dropped the ball on a lot of things, as much as the things that we had potential of, and even it's okay, but I wanted better than okay.
Yeah,
like Anthony Mackie as Captain America.
I will say I do think this movie is better than like the likes of Thor: Love and Thunder or Quantum Mania.
I mean, the fact that we didn't go super comedic on this was a benefit to it. The fact, but
right.
I don't know. At the very minimum, it feels like Anthony Mackie.
I genuinely like the opening. I like the fact that we were bold enough to not have like a traditional Marvel intro.
Yeah. But yeah, just the fact that it's Anthony Mackie's big screen debut as a lead in a movie as Captain America.
The post-credit scene, Dragon, is genuinely the most worthless post-credit scene in any MCU movie, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my god, there's going to be a multiverse? You don't say. Multiple versions of different people? Holy shit. This is new to me. I did not expect this development at all. All right. Okay, Drag, we got a bunch of comments here, so I'm going to try and run through it.
Sure.
He says, okay, I'm out again, Dragon. Sorry for hurting your soul with my cruel remarks.
Okay.
Oh man, Kokia says it's his favorite Captain America film.
I don't believe that.
Just rattling off the hot takes, Kogias. I mean,
I think that's a disingenuous viewpoint. I think Kogias is putting us on. I don't believe him.
I don't hate this movie at all, but it's crazy for anyone to think that this movie's better than Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand if you prefer Sam Wilson to Steve Rogers. I get that. I don't agree with it, but I get it. I get the viewpoint. I've been a big fan of what Bruce Banner's Hulk has been like. Oh my god, Hulk needs an intervention, Dragon. Jesus Christ. But I agree that it's nice to actually get some actual Hulk action in this movie. Like we kind of needed
the Red Hulk fight again. It's the stupidest decision that the secrecy that the MCU traditionally has, and really
out. And Monkey's a big spoiler person, and I'm sure he was very annoyed by it. Because it was impossible to avoid. Like there were literally like Monkey's the kind of person who will like not watch, like he'll go to a movie theater and then like wait in the lobby for the trailers. But it's impossible to avoid when literally like your giant standee posters are like the Red Hulk fist.
It would have been so cool if the tension of the movie is, oh god, is he going to somehow become the Red Hulk? And then you have like this, then you have this really, again, the battle is really cool between.
Or even if we more or less know it's coming, but we just didn't see it like all over because the advertising basically shows you all the cool Red Hulk shots,
Yep, pretty much everything.
Except for the one, the King Kong-esque esque one where he throws the missile at the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways,
the point being, the whole thing is just, it's a shame that, Mackie, it's his big debut. He's Captain America on for the first time, and it's in February. It's Black History Month, and the fact that it was all right. It's a shame.
Yeah, I feel
this is his big moment.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, I mean, Kogi, yes, I do agree with you that by and large, I do think that this movie's underrated. But that being said, like, people are calling it like one of the worst of the MCU.
It is not. No.
So yeah. Kogi says, I think it would be great to have a Hulk multiverse film starring Lou Ferrigno, Eric Bana, Edward Norton, Mark Ruffalo, and Harrison Ford. I'm not gonna lie, that would be wild. I don't think that would be quite as marketable as No Way Home, though. I don't think seeing Eric Bana, Bruce Banner pop up is gonna elicit the same sort of emotions.
If we get a few more Hulks in that movie, you know what they could call it?
World War Hulk?
No, 12 Angry Hulks.
Oh my god, Jesus Christ. All right, well played. We have Korg is just in there randomly for some reason. Hey, I'm kind of a Hulk. I have Hulk-like qualities.
Get out of here, Korg. This is
12 years of Hulk. All right. Okay, next up, we have Heart Eyes. I am not going to waste your time on this, Dragon. This is a very bog standard. Have you seen My Bloody Valentine, Dragon? Have you seen the 2002 movie Valentine? Have you seen Scream? This is basically those two movies in a fucking blender. It's very derivative.
So it's not a love story.
Well, basically the catch is that the characters are pretty much self-aware of the romantic comedy tropes, and the catch is that this is a killer who's almost kind of like a tongue-in-cheek version of the Zodiac Killer, where he's going after like young couples, you know. And the whole thing with this movie is that like the universe is like very aware of the killer and his MO, and like the fact that he does target the young couples. And the leads in this movie, they're basically like in this sort of like meet cute where they're assigned to a project for work together. And it's like throughout the whole movie, they're kind of like in this sort of like meet cute sort of, you know, like getting to know each other, kind of first date sort of romantic tension. But they're struggling against it. Like they're acknowledging like if we're together, then the Hard Eyes Killer is going to get us. And the Hard Eyes Killer targets couples. So that's kind of the gimmick of the movie. It's fun enough, I guess, but it's not nearly enough to like carry the whole movie's runtime. And I will say that it had more rom-com than slasher. Yeah, it does lean into rom-com tropes. I mean, it does. And that the rom-com stuff is the fun stuff of the movie. I think the leads do have chemistry with each other. I will say, as far as like the whole who's the killer mystery, Dragon, it's blatantly obvious. Like the second that the character pops up, it's like, oh, okay, it's clearly that guy. It's clearly that guy. There are technically two killers. The other killer is a little bit more unpredictable, but one of the two characters is just blatantly like the second he pops up, it's like, oh, it's clearly him. Like obviously it's him. So that's annoying. I don't know. This movie's very disposable. I got some mild enjoyment here and there just from the actual romantic comedy elements of it. But by and large, it's kind of a Jeremy Johns, like, not going to remember it in T-2 days sort of situations. Yeah. All right. Okay, next up. This is the Tom Green documentary.
Yes. So Tom Green, he's always been kind of an interesting character, and I just kind of happened upon this on Amazon. He's very much kind of like there's some similarities, honestly, to Andy. He's kind of like the Canadian, in some respects, Tom Green is kind of like the Canadian Andy Kaufman. He had kind of a vibe of Andy Kaufman. Not a full-on, he's not as great as Andy Kaufman, but, you know. The fact is, the guy was kind of ahead of his time in regards to comedy, and it's him now
as far as like shock humor, and as far as just like that kind of vibe.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So he's basically, it's him currently doing a documentary about his own life, which already is kind of unheard of. So again, it's him just kind of turning that on. It's you're like he's doing a documentary on himself. And again, this kind of takes you back to his MTV roots, where basically he had his own talk show and everything, and he was very inspired by David Letterman's kind of the things that he would do on the street, like he would walk in the buildings with fruit baskets and everything. And um, and that's the thing, like this, like, it's like you said, Tom Green was kind of the shock and kind of the prank show, like that was very like punked, like it was very much Tom Green was kind of he predated that. He was kind of ahead of his time, and people were like, what the heck is he doing? And then eventually people got it, and then they kind of made a mint off of it.
Right.
And, it's just, I thought it was, I think this documentary might be up your alley. I don't know how you feel about Tom Green.
I like Tom Green.
I think if you like Tom Green, I would say give it a watch, because it is interesting. It's good retrospective on the guy, and it's like the man, he's knowingly doing stuff that is kind of like, it's not good, but it's like, it's performance art of its day. It's kind of how does that kind of stuff like lead to fame and lead to like stuff like Drew Barrymore and like lead to it's like we even have like kind of like Andy Kaufman. He too had a cancer scare. Only difference is he survived it.
Right.
That's the thing. So he's kind of dealing with that, and what happens when you come out the other side of that, and then you have like what potentially is the biggest movie of your career with the movie that he made, like all the fame that he had garnered. He did Freddy Got Fingered, and then
which honestly, Dragon, that's a movie where it's like, for as insane as that movie is, I feel like it is kind of getting a little bit of a pop culture reevaluation. Yeah, go ahead.
And they kind of examined that in the movie, which is really interesting. Honestly, that was kind of my point of intrigue. I wonder how he responds to the whole Freddy Got Fingered thing.
Yeah, right.
So it's a very reflective documentary.
Daddy, I'm a farmer.
It was a pleasant documentary, I will tell you that much. It's interesting, but it's yeah.
Okay, and speaking of pleasant, we have Paddington in Peru. Dragon, there's an awesome theme song for this movie that Olivia Colman performs. It goes hard. It's a great musical number. Unfortunately, that's probably the big highlight of the whole movie for me. This is easily I'm not going to say this is bad at all. It's a perfectly fun, perfectly pleasant Paddington movie. It's a big step down from the first two, man. It really is, unfortunately. I've got two major issues with this movie. Number one for me is that there's just a little bit too much going on in the plot. I think Olivia Colman is kind of a little bit of a twist villain, spoiler alert. And it spells it out pretty clearly. I think there's a little bit of a joke about how obvious it is. But too much. Yeah, I agree, Colby. Too much Antonio Banderas. Antonio Banderas, frankly, didn't even need to be in the movie, and his whole subplot kind of drags the movie down. Like, I feel like his whole subplot, he's another villain character, and it's just, again, Dragon, with the Paige Novak of it all, we're getting a lot of use out of it tonight. They muddy the waters of the plot. There's just too much. It's just like, and we're kind of getting into Paddington's backstory. I'm not going to spoil the backstory for you, but I thought the reveal was frankly a little out of nowhere and kind of stupid. Let's see. Yeah, it did give us a Peruvian sounding reorchestration of the William Tell Orchestra overture. It did give us that. Also, Dragon, one of my big issues with this movie is that the family is so fucking, like, their roles are so stock in this movie. The daughter is now going to college, and the mother empty nest syndrome. Oh my god! And Dragon, you'll never guess what the son is up to. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The son is a teenager now, and he's moody.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
they do a big disservice to the family in this. Hugh Bonneville is fun, but his plot is just very surface level. It's like he's got a new job, and the boss in his new job is telling him that he needs to take risk, but he's generally speaking not a risk taker. And so gee, I wonder if there's going to be moments in this movie where he's going to have to step up to the plate and take risks. Like, Dragon, it's just, it is so cookie cutter. Like, this movie, again, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly serviceable. If you're a fan of the Paddington movies, I think you'll get some enjoyment out of it. It's not nearly on the same level as the other two Paddington movies. I feel like it just goes way too much into like kind of like stock kids movie territory. There are creative elements. I mean, there is definitely like the finale has some Rube Goldberg machine style kind of like craziness going on that I appreciate. There is a lot of whimsy to it. Paddington as a character is never not going to be delightful. But I don't know, man. This one just did not. If Paddington is an 8 out of 10 and Paddington 2 is a 10 out of 10, I would say this one's like a 6 out of 10, unfortunately.
I say the kiss of death was not bringing back Sally Hawkins.
Yeah, that too. That too. She was missed. I will agree. Yeah.
I think that's what doomed it.
So yeah, again, not terrible, but definitely an example of like a threequel that's just not up to par with the other two, unfortunately. All right. Next up, we have the Monkey Chain, the Monkey Fist, the Monkey. All right. So Dragon, this is essentially do you remember Cocaine Bear from a couple years ago?
Yeah.
This is very much that level of like, I had a lot of fun with it in the moment. I think this movie has some really, really insane over-the-top kills. Honestly, the kills are so violent and over-the-top that they're just straight up like Looney Tunes, cartoony. I don't really think they're disturbing. I just think they're just really funny. By and large, this movie is a comedy. And again, it's that Jeremy Jahns thing where I had a lot of fun with it. It's not quite not gonna remember it in T-2 seconds, but it's pretty disposable, and I'm certainly not gonna really remember much of it by the end of the year. And that's kind of where I make the comparison to Cocaine Bear. Like, much like Cocaine Bear, I had a lot of fun with Cocaine Bear and the Monkey in theaters. It's just very disposable. It's just like, I'm not going to remember this movie. It's not going to stick with me. I already know it. But it is fun. And I will say that if it's a good time if you're drunk. Yeah, exactly. I know that Colby's not going to agree with this. For me, I like this movie a lot better than I like Longlegs, which is the other Osgood Perkins movie. You know that Osgood Perkins is the son of Anthony Perkins, right?
I did not.
Yeah. So I definitely think for me, I like it better than Longlegs just because this is very obviously supposed to be a comedy more than this is barely horror. This is barely a horror comedy. It is almost straight up comedy. I mean, there's really no level of actual suspense here. It is just like, if you want some insane kills and some fun times with the monkey character and the most Stephen King fucking set of brothers that I've ever seen in a movie, there's a set of bullies, like teen girl bullies in this movie that are like, it's so funny because like they feel like the cast of Zoe 101, but they have the dialogue of like traditional Stephen King bullies. It's very weird. Yeah, overall, I definitely like it better than Longlegs just because I feel like it's just much more like the intent was there a lot more than with Longlegs. I think Longlegs kind of got lost in the sauce a little bit of what it wanted to be. This clearly knows that it's a comedy. It's still not great. It's still just I honestly think I was kind of insane putting this in my top 10 most anticipated of the year, all things considered. All right, and that's it for this relatively freaking brief month, right? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. All right. Let's go to TV. Okay, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Dragon. Sell me on it. Because I got a lot of catch up with superhero stuff. I got to catch up with The Boys. I got to catch up with My Adventures of Superman. Why is Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man worth my time, Dragon? Give me reviews of Spider-Man.
So this was pretty good. I mean, you got to remember, for a while in animation, especially for TV shows of Spider-Man animation, a lot of it was kind of a slog for a while. After Spectacular was like the pinnacle of like that was like the best Spider-Man show they had done, second to, well, honestly, even so depending on who you ask, even surpassing like 90s Spider-Man. 90s Spider-Man, you had Spectacular. Spectacular was like the in recent years like the highlight, and that was decades ago though at this point. This I think is making a stab at like what we had with Spectacular. Now again, it's Spectacular, so you can't surpass that. But I was really impressed. A lot of people are on its case because it's kind of going for. The fear was it was like the whole thing of like is it trying to be relevant and really PC, when I really don't think it is. I think it's a lot of people is kind of judging it before they actually watch the show.
Honestly, frankly, it's like, oh my god, it has black people in it.
Yeah, that whole thing.
I hate that kind of fucking discourse.
So ignoring all that bullcrap, ignoring all that, like the swallow of that, I think this was a really good show. It might take you an episode or two to really just fully appreciate it. I think episode 1 might say, here's the thing, episode 1 sets a tone and really good.
The Osborn stuff is definitely the selling point.
That's what I'm getting at. So the multiverse aspect of this show, initially I was kind of dreading, where it's like, why can't we just have it be like the prelude to Homecoming? Why can't we just do that?
Right.
But and when I'm watching it, it really becomes apparent as to why and the benefit of which we're doing here. We're essentially setting it in a multiverse without, like, it's not in your face multiverse, but setting in a multiverse allows us to basically show you, here's what the MCU Spider-Man could have been. Okay. And it was really interesting. Like,
basically, I think without like the kid Iron Man element,
without that, and without being kind of hamstrung into like we have certainly Sony. We're not in the. It doesn't feel like we're completely in the clutches of Sony here. Like Sony has to approve everything. This feels a lot more freeing now. Norman Osborn is fantastic. Your boy, Coleman Domingo, he's fantastic in this. There's a really heady twist at the end of season 1, where, for example, episode 9 is pretty much like, that's a fantastic finale in itself. A finale, it's like, okay, I'm very satisfied with this. We don't have to do anything further. And then 10 happens, and 10 has this heady, almost Shyamalan-like twist. That is like, really? Okay, Shyamalan is more, okay, maybe it's not Shyamalan, but it's a really cool twist. And it's like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming, and that is really interesting. And it was like, that's the really impressive thing. But up to that point, though, I think you'll be kind of interested in just like, this is like, the art style in itself is really cool. It's a blend of like, I think it's Leo Romero is the artist. He's a comic artist who basically modeled the style of the show after, and his style is like a blend of like 60s Spider-Man in terms of Steve Ditko as the Genesis, and then there's a lot of Romita, and Romita's my favorite era Spider. Romita's like, to me, that's the definitive Spider-Man look. So it's kind of a blend of the two best 60s kind of periods of Spider-Man, but with the modern setting applied to it, which is really cool. And again, it seems like right now Marvel needs to be doing that, because that's where the Fantastic Four is really succeeding right now.
Right.
Going with the retro kind of 60s vibes. There's a big 60s vibe, despite saying, Tiki, you're going to love.
Brad Bird just direct a Marvel movie already.
Tiki, I'm going to tell you this. If you liked Aunt May in the Spider-Man movies, they do even better with her here. She's the pinnacle of Aunt May. She's fantastic.
I mean, you mean the MCU Aunt May?
I mean, if you remotely liked her, but
because I like her, I don't think she holds a candle to Rosemary Harris, though.
You mean, yeah, that's the thing, though. So nothing, but that's like,
like Rosemary Harris is just like, I think Rosemary Harris is like as like ripped straight out of the comics as J.K. Simmons is, as far as casting goes.
Okay, that's true, Tegan. That's what I'm saying. Some things you can't compete with, like Spectacular Spider-Man. You can't compete with Rosemary Harris Aunt May. But in terms of like in doing the younger Aunt May, this is the best. Like, she feels so Aunt-like, and we get to actually do stuff with Aunt May, and she feels like a really well. Tegan, here's a sell for you. We actually talk about Uncle Ben in this show.
I mean, yeah, you're right. That is.
We addressed that there was an Uncle Ben, and again, it's kind of like what we very vaguely hinted at in Civil War. and Homecoming, it has been a few months since Uncle Ben has died, and Aunt May has to deal with that.
Right.
So we get to explore those things here. We have again, so we're taking the archetypes of the Spider-Man characters, and we're getting a lot of those characters, but we're also throwing characters in like like Lonnie Lincoln. Like we do a really great kind of character analysis on Lonnie Lincoln, who becomes somebody in the comics, and we're seeing him. It's it's really interesting. I don't want to give anything away. Daredevil pops up, and it is fantastic. I will say that. Yeah, just I will say I had one gripe. I had one gripe with the show, and it's not even really a good gripe. It's just this thing kind of bugs me. We have really deep pools with a lot of the Spider-Man rogues gallery in this. Now, that's not to say we do some iconic foes. We do some really cool stuff with them, but not a lot of iconic foes. They're using them sparingly because they're building them up. And they know they're going to get. We're going to get more seasons of this. So again, they're not just giving them all of us. They're not giving all of them to us in one season, which is probably a smart way of doing it. So we do have the villains that we have are in fact Spider-Man villains, but they are very, very just like I really wish we said what their name was in the show because no one is going to know who they are. So that kind of bugs me. For example, like Butane. Barely anyone knows who Butane is. We have these two. Butane is like
that just sounds like a throwaway villain name.
Exactly. So that's what kind of bugs me.
Very we have villain of the week coded.
Honestly. So but we only do it for like 2 episodes, so it's like fine. It's like 2 episodes we get villain.
Yeah.
Or everything else is really on the money. Point being, I'm very sold on the next 2 seasons. There's a lot of really good stuff here. There's something to build on. It's like, yeah. And apparently, Tiki, I found this out. Apparently, there is an embargo on Spider-Man on television. That's why we're getting an animated show. Because apparently, sadly, Spider-Man cannot appear in the live-action Daredevil show.
I did hear about this. Yeah,
that is an unfortunate.
Are we really surprised though at this point? With
apparently, the Spider-Man. The whole Nick Cage Spider-Man Noir thing, I think because it's not literally like name brand Spider-Man, they can get away with it. But aside from that, Spider-Man cannot appear.
And even then, I think it's stupid that is being done in live action, honestly.
Yeah.
That's one of the Spider-Man things that should be animated, Dragon.
Honestly, I think this is going to sound weird. I think it's because Amazon doesn't have the budget for another animated superhero show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the budget for Invincible is any indication, frankly.
Anyway, point being, apparently Spider-Man can't be in a show for more than 30 minutes. So even in animation, that's the rule. I think so because of Spider-Verse. They can't exceed.
Dragon, I'm gonna break the rule because we'll get to Invincible next month, but I feel like we'd be burying the lead. How amazing was Aaron Paul in this last week?
See, Tiki, if you had not forsaken me for the Oscars Sunday, I really wanted you on for that.
No, I very much regretted not being on for that episode. I mean, fucking hell, man.
Yeah.
If Aaron Paul didn't just prove in that episode that he's a great in the voice acting department, Jesus Christ. All right, anyways. But yeah, we'll get to that next month, folks.
I mentioned it on the thing of if Tiki didn't forsake us for the Oscars.
You know what's funny is that if you would have just done it at 11 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock, I could have done it.
Well, I was worried the Oscars would carry over. I thought maybe it would end until midnight or something.
No, I know. It's the Oscars always start at 7 o'clock Eastern, so that's 4 o'clock my time. So but again, we cut out the best original song stuff, but we added in the Skyfall and the Quincy Jones of it all. So not doing a good job with time management, Oscars. Anyway,
point being, I really do recommend you watch Friendly. Honestly, if I were you should do it the way I did it, just to hype you up for it. You should watch that Icons on Earth thing on Spider-Man, and then watch Friendly Neighborhood Spiders to get you in a good mood for Spider-Man.
That's a good idea.
All
right. Okay, Cobra Kai, Season 6, Part 3. It's finally over! But unlike the first 2 parts of this season, this one actually kind of stuck to landing.
Yeah, apparently they saved the best for last. This is a heck of a comeback in the final episode.
Dragon, I still can't get over that Gunther cold open literally feels like it was made for us.
Oh yeah.
It really felt like the showrunners were just hey, Tiki and Dragon really like this Gunther guy. Let's give him like a super badass moment that's like totally not in proportion to the actual contributions that he's had in the show so far.
But yeah, so we struck the landing on Johnny Lawrence's character development, and Martin Cove, he was the standout.
Oh my god, dude! That last scene with Martin Cove and Johnny, and Johnny was just devastating.
Oh, so good.
And I mean, I'm going to talk about it, but like now that I've actually seen the first two Karate Kid movies, like it resonates even more. So, yeah. I mean, I'll say what we've been saying with Cobra Kai, though. I think it's a shame that they didn't just take the best parts of seasons 5 and 6 and put it together into one long season if they wanted to do a long season.
Yeah, that's the thing. It just basically it was such a smart move to simplify the Sekai Taikai going to the full circle to the All Valley vibe that we had previously. It just makes sense. 3-act structure. You want to
it basically feels like the last 5 episodes were more or less pointless, honestly. Like the middle chunk of the season.
Yep. We literally underwrite the stupid Miyagi plot line. It's like a line of like, oh yeah, no, you did it for good reason. Okay. So it's overall the show is a journey of ups and downs, much like the Karate Kid franchise itself. But the end result, pretty magical, pretty cool. So it was a great show overall. But it's just some stumbling blocks towards the end until those last 5 episodes.
All right, Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah, so apparently the way I hear it is like just pronounce Hunter, but I always say it the same way you just did. I say Hunter x Hunter. Anyway, so this is the 2011 version. This is an anime. You probably guessed. So my buddy, my anime buddies, one of my friends, he always highly recommended this to me. And the main reason I watch this is because the creator of this is also the creator of Yu Yu Hakusho.
Oh, okay,
so
yeah.
That always sold me on it. This is basically like Yu Yu Hakusho is kind of the warm up for what we did in Hunter. And it's kind of like a weird fusion of Yu Yu Hakusho and my other childhood favorite, Dragon Ball. In a sense, it's basically have this optimistic kid, kind of the Kid Goku-esque figure, Gon. He sets out to become a hunter. A hunter's kind of like an adventurer, treasure hunter, bounty hunter, you name it, anything that falls under the term hunter, essentially. You get a license if you pass an exam, and you can basically, it's kind of like a James Bond's license to kill, essentially. It's essentially what it is. Anyway, so, you take the hunter exam with like an annual thing, and make some friends. He's got a great supporting cast, much like in you. So again, there are a lot of parallels to Yu Yu Hakusho, where basically you have like a group of 4 essentially. You got Gon, you have Kurapika, you have Leorio, and you have Killua, and they're very much kind of in the vein of like Yusuke, Kuwabara, Kurama, and Hiei. It's very much kind of in that group of 4. They're all very distinct personalities, and anyway, point being, great bunch, good characters. Leorio is kind of the favorite. He's kind of like the Kuwabara of the bunch. He's the funny one. He's the loudmouth. He's like he also, he feels like he should be trying to be a lawyer, but he is. He's aiming to be a doctor to help people. So that's kind of what the license gives you, a lot of wealth and like a lot of opportunities and stuff too. So like he could pay all of his like any of his like college tuition with this license. Point being, I guess overall, I do recommend this show. The hype was warranted, but I'm going to put it to you this way. Okay, show's got 6 seasons. Pretty hefty seasons too. It's an anime. Animes go on for a while. Like One Piece is like a bazillion episodes. This is not that. This has a very, like Yu Yu Hakusho, this is a set number of episodes, like 100 plus, but not too many. It's 6 seasons. You have the exam. Like the first, if I were to break into 2 halves, your first 3 seasons I find infinitely better than the last 3 seasons. You got the exam where we get the license, the Battle Tower, which is really cool, and then you have the Phantom Troop, which is basically, so these are 3 stories that are like an evolving story. They all still feel very localized to our bunch of characters that we were introduced to from the beginning. After that, points where things get tricky. You have the Greed Island game, the bug season, and the election season. Best way to put it is that Greed Island's fun. It's basically go inside a video game. The whole quest of the entire series is Gon is trying to impress his father by becoming a hunter and eventually find his father. That's what his imperative is in the show. So he gets the license and he's looking for his father, and ultimately Gon's father is he's kind of a terrible parent for just making his son go through all this just to find him. He's kind of a terrible parent.
This is kind of giving me like shades of like Mr. Ketchum.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of that in there, but you actually see him though. You actually eventually he does meet up with him, and we kind of it's hilarious. The show kind of calls him out, like there's like a crowd of people because Gon's like the most likable, pure-hearted, very Kid Goku-esque character. Like everyone likes Gon. It's the whole point, and everyone's like he finally reunites with his father, and they're like, "Oh, Gene, you're such a prick. Why did you make this poor boy?" Dude, like they're all like yelling at him, but like, how dare you? Like the poor kid. They all love this kid. Anyway, here's ultimately for Hunter for me. The Bugs arc was the low point. That was the slog, man. That was like we drop off all of our wonderful supporting characters. It's basically Gon and his buddy Killua, and there's like they're on the path to find Gene, but this just feels like a huge, giant, boring tangent of fighting bug monsters, and I just hated it. It was just so boring, just so rinse and repeat, and things didn't pick up until we then kind of started closing the book with the election thing. We're going to basically the whole point of that season. We got to Gon is in kind of critical condition. We have to save him. Which we bring it back. Everyone's coming back into the fray. So, it's a good show. It's a shame we kind of lost momentum after those first 3 seasons. That's my big gripe against it, which, again, even in Yu Yu Hakusho, we kind of jumped the shark at a certain point. It just kind of happens in a long-spanning manga.
I remember Yu Yu Hakusho kind of falling off. I don't exactly remember the details, but there was a certain point where...
after the tournament, things start to fall off.
Exactly. After the tournament. Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Which, by the way, Tiki, you might... you'll never have time for it. I don't know why I'm bothering. I'm just going to throw it out there. Yu Yu Hakusho is leaving Netflix. It's still going to be on Hulu, but it's leaving Netflix.
Yeah, you're right. I'm never going to have time for it.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry.
You could watch the 2 good seasons, though. You might have time for that.
All right.
Anyway, but so I recommend Hunter x Hunter. But yeah, it feels like something as a kid, had I known about this. Mind, this was in 2011 when they redid and they made it better, which is what I watched. This is like the one to go to. Had I somehow been able to watch this as a kid, I think I might have had an experience like watching a Dragon Ball or a Yu Yu Hakusho, so it would have been fun.
Sure.
So it was very youthful.
All right. Okay, It's Always Sunny season 12. Dragon, this was a comeback season for me, man. This season, honestly, like, it was pretty much straight bangers. I mean, I'm going to go through them. The Gang Turns Black, honestly, that might be in my top 10. Like, I love how inventive that was. I love the musical component to it. I love the fact that we bring back the old black man from the Dennis and Mac Live in the Suburbs episode, and that he's just kind of like a fixture of the season, just in the background. The gang goes to a water park is just like that's just a lot of fun. Very relatable as far as like theme park shenanigans for me. The aforementioned old lady house, a situation comedy, just really, really fun there with the with Mac's mom and Charlie's mom, just the just how passive aggressive that whole situation is. Wolf Cola, a public relations nightmare, once again, very solid Frank episode. I think the Dennis Reynolds making a murderer episode, that might be like Dragon. It's not because I love the idea of having like a Dennis Reynolds making a murderer thing, but I hate the Marine Ponderosa cat stuff. I'm glad she's dead. I'm glad we don't have to deal with that shit anymore. So that kind of drags the episode down for me. It's an amazing premise for an episode. I hate the Marine Ponderosa of it all. So I'm glad that is no longer an element of the show. Hero or hate crime, kind of an all-timer, honestly. PTSD, great. I love PTSD. I love the ending of PTSD. Do you remember the ending of PTSD, Dragon?
Not offhand.
Okay, it's where basically Dee is trying to get revenge for she slept with a male stripper who was like, "Oh, you were my rock bottom, and I'm gonna get my life back together." And so she basically like does this whole thing where she rehabilitates him, gets him back into stripping, only to trap him into giving his teenage daughter a lap dance.
Right, I remember it now. Yep.
Who's your rock bottom now, bitch? Like, I gotta tell you, man, like, stuff like that kind of makes Dee, like, one of my favorite characters. Like, she really is kind of becoming one of my favorites because between that, I find the stuff with her acting and her comedy very endearing as someone who's, kind of like in the amateur stand-up realm myself. I think it's very endearing. Then we get to the big episode, Dragon. The Gang 10's bar. And I love how throughout PTSD and the Gang 10's bar, we have little bits with Cricket that then pay off in the big Cricket episode, A Cricket's Tale, which was just genius. Awesome episode. And then we end on the whole, like, Dennis's double life. And again, Dragon, it's kind of an It's Always Sunny finale that doesn't really land for me. I know the real life situation here was that Glenn Howerton was thinking about leaving the show, and so that's why they did this whole thing where it's like, oh, is Dennis leaving Philadelphia for real? I don't know, and I know that
this was not a great finale.
In season 13 as well. I know that Dennis comes back, obviously, but I know that it's essentially like a Vinny and Brian situation, right? Where it's like in the first couple episodes of season 13, don't we get like another member of the gang, like a replacement member of the gang for a couple episodes?
I don't know if it's a couple episodes, but we do.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not crazy about that. I just kind of feel like it was just kind of a matter of circumstance. But overall, just a really, really strong batch of episodes, honestly. Like, this genuinely kind of felt like a comeback season for me. I thoroughly enjoyed all of these for the most part.
Yeah. By the way, Caitlin Olsen has a couple other shows if you ever want to check her out and see how that went.
Oh, I'll look into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Caitlin Olsen, she's not connected to the Olsen twins, is she?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
No, but Scarlet Witch is.
Well, yes, I know that, Dragon. Thank you. All right. Anyways.
I don't know what you know.
I know. Sorry. Anyways. Okay, Hollywood Black.
Yeah, I think you would have really liked this. This is a 4-part.
I wanted to check it out. I just didn't have time for it, but
so this is a 4-part limited kind of retrospective kind of thing on the evolution of black filmmaking. It was by by Justin Simeon. I think it's Simon that has like 2 eyes in it. But anyway, point being, the guy who did Dear White People and the Haunted Mansion remake, the Haunted Mansion 2023 one.
Uh-huh.
That was him. And he's leading the charge on this, and it was this is a solid, comprehensive kind of catch-all. We have a lot of really solid interviews with all sorts of black talent, a lot of directors and actors and actresses. My favorite pull, and again showing some range for a change, Giancarlo Esposito.
No, really, he's actually showing some range.
Well, I mean, the fact that it's a reminder of Giancarlo. His big break was Do the Right Thing. He was a bugging out.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone forgets that. Not only that, this kind of reminds you that his character was essentially incited the big riot.
That's true. Yeah.
Which again is really cool. So anyway, the point being, he has a really good backstory for that too. Where essentially, his long story short, Giancarlo. Basically his background was kind of, had a little bit of Italian in his background. So when he's saying, he wants brothers on the wall, that was a personal thing for him in the movie. So I don't know. There's a lot of really interesting insights like that. For me, the big takeaway, I kind of mentioned this when we were talking about Nope. The big thing I got from this is there was just the reminder. I was kind of thinking this when I was watching Nope, but I think I was doing this concurrently. So I can't remember which came first, but it was a reminder of how basically, all these iconic film moments basically, are built on the backs of like ridiculing black people. And the irony is that over the years, it's kind of led to the American fiction era where we're turning it on its head and black people are mocking, kind of white cinema. It's just really funny how the worm is turned there,
I think it's pretty clear that we need to listen to black voices.
Exactly. So that's kind of like the overall arc of this thing, where we kind of start from there, where black people are like the punchline, or they're the bad guy, or they're like the victim, and we just kind of turn it completely on its head, where we're leading the charge here. They're making the smart movies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a good watch. It's 4 episodes, pretty digestible and pretty informative. We cover the Poitiers, but it's more. I love that it's more than just Poitiers. That's the thing. It could have easily been Poitiers for 4 episodes, but it's more. All right.
All right. Okay, next up, one of the highlights, honestly, for me. I did not know about this show. It was on Schaefer Rillis's list of his favorite TV shows of the year, so that's why I checked it out. John Mulaney's Everybody's in LA. Dragon, if there was ever a talk show that was up our alley, it is this. This is basically like the Eric Andre show for like the David Hyde Pierce skiing crowd, essentially.
Oh God.
Okay, you know how I don't know how familiar you are with Eric Andre. I haven't actually watched it, but I know that Hannibal Buress is his like sidekick. Dragon Richard Kind is John Mulaney's sidekick in this. And Richard Kind plays it so fucking funny because the whole bit with Richard Kind is that he's just slightly unhinged and a little bit too into it. But it's understated. It's like, it's subtle. It's not like in your face, like, look at Richard Kind acting crazy. It's more so just every time you cut to him, again, it's like the whole gag is that he's a little too into it, like he's a little bit unhinged, but like you can't put your finger on why. And it's awesome. You kind of have to watch it to know what I'm talking about, but it's a great Richard Kind performance. And I say performance because he's very deliberately like doing something with it. He's not just playing baseline himself, like he's playing a characterized version of himself. But essentially this is just comfort food, Dragon. Like, honestly, I was kind of jealous of I was kind of, not jealous is not the right word, but like, I was a little bit disappointed that like I wasn't sick when I discovered this, because this would have been just such a good sick watch. It's so comfort food. Because basically the premise here, how it came together, is that Netflix was doing a stand-up comedy festival at the Hollywood Bowl. And so there were a bunch of essentially LA was kind of like filled with a who's who of stand-up comics, like in the week that this was being filmed. And so John Mulaney just took basically any stand-up comic that you could think of. Like there's just everyone, just the whole Rolodex of relevant stand-up comics. And he just puts them in a room. Like, generally speaking, throughout the episode, there will be maybe like 3 or 4 comics, and then also like some local people too, because the whole gag is that every episode centers on a different piece of LA iconography. So for example, there's one episode that's just based on like how confusing the LA geography is, how there's just all these like different suburbs and neighborhoods and even standalone towns and cities that are all part of like the general LA area and kind of like the urban planning of it. Probably my favorite episode is all about just the idea of palm trees in LA. Where did they come from? Why did we plant him? Did you know, Dragon, that all the palm trees in LA are dying, and in the next 20 years or so, they're going to have to be replanted? Like, just really interesting stuff like that. Really interesting, like, local stuff like that. So it's a celebration of LA. It's a celebration of comedy. And John Mulaney is just a great straight man. He's just doing his John Mulaney. Like, again, he's one of those, like, he could read the phone book and it would be compelling sort of people for me at this point. And then Richard Kind is just, like, doing a great kind of, like, opposite of the straight man. Like, he's very much kind of, like, unhinged, but again, just slightly unhinged, not unhinged in an in-your-face sort of way, just an unhinged and, like, I think there's something wrong with Richard Kind, but I can't put my finger on exactly what it is. So this is just a delight, man. I really had a good time with it. I'm not saying it's like must-watch TV. I'm not saying you have to like bang down your door and watch it right away. But if it sounds appealing, if you're in the mood for some good humor and a really, really good Richard Kind performance, then I would check it out for sure. All right. Okay, and finally, we have a lot of it. Let's get to the catch-up. All right, Intergalactic. I don't really know what else to say about this movie that we haven't already said. I think it's all right. I honestly, out of the 4 movies we covered for Black History Heroes this month, I think it's definitely the least substantial for me. Essentially, it's just like it is just one of those things where it's like it's basically just a long music video. Like it's a really neat music video. It's got some cool bits to it. It's got good animation. I didn't really connect with the characters in this one the way that I should have, especially because I am genuinely a Kid Cudi fan. So, what do you think?
I mean, look, yeah, you're right. We did say a lot of kind of stuff about it already. I mean, the big takeaway for me is that I I really appreciate that we have like a love story in animation, like an adult
Mhm.
love story in animation that we don't see every day. I love Jessica Williams in Shrinking, so seeing her play the Meadow character was I thought was really great. It's very appealing, and it's again, admittedly, there's not a lot to it outside of just kind of the artistry and the execution of it, as far as the animation goes. But it's still pretty cool.
All right. Okay. Next up, we have Dogman. All right. Yeah, Dragon. I enjoyed this quite a bit. I will say honestly, about 20 minutes in, I was like, oh man, like this is gonna sound hyperbolic, but I swear to God, I was kind of thinking this. I was like, this movie has so many jokes per minute, so many gags, so many background bits, so many like little lines of dialogue that just kind of caught me off guard. Uh, I was honestly thinking it had Emperor's New Groove upside just as far as like animated comedy goes. Unfortunately, about halfway in, we're introduced to a mutant fish character played by fucking Ricky Gervais, which Dragon, if you don't know, Ricky Gervais is just one of those celebrities that's kind of in just the fuck you kind of category as far as like his political leanings go, honestly. And he's obnoxious. He basically plays the same type of character that Richard Ayoade played in The Bad Guys, and it's just as obnoxious. And frankly, it brings the whole movie down, honestly. Here's the thing though, Pete Davidson plays Petey the Cat, and it's essentially a Petey the Cat movie with Dogman as a supporting character, for better or for worse. Because I do think that it's a great role for Pete Davidson. It honestly might be Pete Davidson's best role, just as far as like he does genuinely get some pathos. There's a little clone of himself that comes out as a little kid, and he essentially treats the clone as a son, and it's a nice little bonding moment or a bonding storyline. There's some really nice stuff with little Petey in this movie. Stylistically, I think this movie's a treat. I think this movie takes what Captain Underpants started as far as like being stylistically like, like it's drawn to look like something that a kid would draw, like an elementary school student's comic book, and it just stretches that. Like it goes beyond that. Like it's like stylistically it's really cool, Dragon. Like every element of this movie is stylistically has that kind of like little kid comic book flair to it. There's so many different background gags. There's so many different like background gags of just like stuff being spelled in a little kid sort of way in newspapers and billboards and stuff like that. It's just all very charming. And then also, not to spoil exactly what happens, but I think this movie has a very self-aware DreamWorks dance party ending that just made me really laugh out loud in the theater. It's just like, yeah, we're doing the dance party, but we're going to be really in your face and self-referential about it. So, all in all, Dragon, this is definitely a good time. It'll probably come to Netflix. When it does come to Netflix, I would recommend it. I don't think it's like an essential, like you got to see it in theater sort of thing. It's not an amazing DreamWorks movie, but it's a fun enough time. I would say it's about on the same level as the Captain Underpants movie. I think I like the Captain Underpants movie better from like a character development point of view, but I like this better stylistically, and I think this has slightly better humor. So I think they're basically on the same wavelength. Yeah. All right. Mystery movie.
All right. The mystery movie is Piece by Piece.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
Yeah. So I was dying to give this one a watch. I've liked Pharrell Williams, based on his the work with Despicable Me. But
He's the kind of artist where it's like he doesn't really have that much of a solo career. He's more of a producer than anything else, which is interesting.
yes, that's I never knew much of him beyond his work with Despicable Me. It's like
Uh-huh.
he was like, oh yeah, he's the music guy with the hat. That's pretty much all I knew him.
That guy with the hat.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's
it's
that.
kind of
That's what he
awesome.
was. He was. Oh yeah, he's the essentially the Dumb It Down. Oh yeah, he's the minion guy with the hat. It's essentially
Uh-huh.
what it was.
Right.
But this so Morgan Neville, the man who did this documentary, of course, Won't You Be My Neighbor? Him tackling this, very interesting to me. Such an unsung approach with the Legos, it's just such a it's such an unusual, just kind of like a just an unusual like approach to
I
a
really love
documentary.
how this movie showcases the creative element of making music in a really visually stimulating way.
Basically, the way we're using Legos is kind of like how Pharrell describes, like how music is like the perception of color,
Mhm,
when
mhm.
I won't say it like an internal kaleidoscope effect when you basically sound turns into color like internally. I know it's a weird kind of heady thing. That's what he said. Don't
No,
get
no,
me.
exactly, but that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
It was such a good idea, and although we just kind of address it up front in the documentary, it's just such a good shakeup to the documentary format, especially with Neville, who always has very distinct documentaries in terms of the projects that he takes on. So that just really helps to stand shoulder
Dragon,
to shoulder.
god damn it, it's really frustrating because it's like I feel like if anyone
Mhm.
could break into the best documentary category as far as pop culture goes, it should be this guy. Like this guy is like the
Yeah,
like he's at the top of the game when it
Neville's the guy. It's like
yeah,
what more
yeah.
again between it's like Neville. What does he have to do? He's done this. He's made every grown man and woman cry with "Won't you
Exactly.
be my Won't you be my neighbor?" It's like come on. Anyway, so again, very interesting rise to fame story on Pharrell. I think it's very cute and just like in the kind of the early years for him and seeing in Lego form is really nice. Like, and I gotta be honest, a lot of feels. The grandmother, kind of like ushering in the love of music with like the little snare drum thing. Like that's really
Totally,
nice.
totally.
I just love the sound design on it too, where again it just mixes like where it feels very like fan film, Lego fan film, which you're hearing like the actual audio and everything. We're using archivally, but just kind of visualized with Legos.
What do you think of the Snoop Dogg bit?
It's really funny.
Yes, yes.
Anyway,
Everyone get enough of it.
it's delightful. So, yeah, so the whole again, the whole basically kind of like the rap impresario kind of producer era of Pharrell. I admit I was kind of wavering a little on that, where basically I kind of realized at a certain point, like, man, don't get me wrong, there's good stuff in there. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying in terms of like the man's life story. It's just like I was for the whole duration I was wondering, when are we gonna get to kind of like Despicable Me era? When are we gonna get to Happy? Happy's
Uh-huh.
like the big song in his career. When are we gonna get to that? And I should realize,
Happy
well,
was a big song, but I also like that they used "Get Lucky" as the revitalization of his career because
yeah.
that really was kind of like pre-Happy. That really was it. That
Yeah,
really
but
was kind of what put him back on the map.
Sure, but Happy was like that's what I'm saying. Happy though is very big
Happy
in the
kind of made him into a phenomenon, but Get Lucky kind of got his name out there again.
yeah. The point being, I love even in the rap era. I love how like, we're showing he's giving his friends like who are down their luck kind of some help, and he's being really nice to them. But that's the thing. I love that kind of after his low point, revitalization is the Get Lucky, but also the Happy song, which is just this really great. It puts a smile on everyone's face. It's a real feel good kind of ending that you want to have. It feels very
Uh-huh.
Morgan Neville to me. It feels very much like everyone count the three and close your eyes kind of a thing. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's just some. Also, my favorite little moment in the whole movie. It's very small. It's very mundane, but I love it just with the style. I love when we're sitting down with Gwen Stefani, and
Yeah.
you have the guys like the mower guys outside. They're like cutting the grasses. Oh,
Yes,
let
yes,
me
yes,
look.
yes,
That's my
totally,
favorite.
totally.
I think that might be my favorite little
Anyone who's ever recorded a podcast can relate to that.
Love it.
All right. Nice. Okay, so speaking of documentaries that aren't nearly as engaging, we've got, one that was actually nominated for Best Documentary. And look, I don't want to poo-poo this. I really don't. It's an important subject matter.
Tiki, they said no to Christopher Reeve. They deserve it. Go on.
Yeah, so we got Sugarcane. Essentially, this is Killers of the Flower Moon mixed with Nickel Boys. So this is essentially the genocide of Native Americans, but in the setting of a boarding school, which is really, really disturbing. I mean, honestly, Dragon, this movie does a decent job. My issue here is honestly, it's one of those kind of fly on the wall documentaries where we're seeing the filmmaker he's doing this investigation into this boarding school that his grandfather or his grandmother and his mother both attended and survived. But there were a lot of people that went through this boarding school that killed themselves through the trauma. There are a lot of incidences where much like kind of Nickel Boys kind of got into the same thing where people would get sent to the principal's office essentially and then never be seen again, that kind of thing. My issue is that I really feel movies like this, especially with a lot of moving parts, we need, if not a narration, at least we need talking heads. And this movie doesn't have that. It's just got kind of the fly on the wall, the filmmaker himself is going around talking to people and we're seeing the raw footage of the conversations as the stuff is coming together, which is certainly an approach to documentaries. And it's the approach to documentaries that I feel the fucking best documentary feature usually prefers. But Dragon, I don't know. I like my talking heads when it comes to documentaries. I don't know about you. I think that a good use of a talking head narration can really elevate a documentary for me. And so just the approach, I think the subject matter is interesting and relevant and heartbreaking. I just think the approach is very cold. It's very forensic. So yeah, it's not one that I would recommend. I think probably out of the best documentary feature nominees, this is the one that's the least hey, the fucking Russia, Ukraine, the Israel conflicts, the global world issue shit. Let's just give it to that. And again,
every year it's war is bad. We get it.
Right, exactly. This actually at least is diving into an atrocity that happened in the past in an interesting way. Again, I just wish that the approach wasn't so clinical. That was my big issue with it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Here.
So I was very sold on the premise of Here, but I knew it was going to live or die by the runtime, which, so, to my surprise, was actually rather economized compared to Zemeckis' usual runtimes. This is,
shit! This is the one with the house, right?
Yeah, this is the one with the house.
Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
So this is it's 104 minutes. So that's pretty economic compared to what I was afraid. It was pretty a 2.5 hour movie.
Oh, that would have been brutal.
But yeah, so this is basically it's a reunion for Tom Hanks, Robin Wright, and Zemeckis. So it's really kind of 30 years later, essentially. It's here's the thing. I wish we trimmed just a little bit, and you kind of vocalize this fear a little bit here, where we jump around a lot. Again, it's what we hoped it was going to be in terms of the camera is locked on this location the whole movie. And so basically we're in this one camera setup, but again, we play with this location, through the eras. So it's the way in which we do is we jump back and forth. It's not linear, which I mean, is kind of cool. And I kind of like that, but I feel maybe we have just a little too many things that we jump to. We see the prehistoric era, when the house hits. Now we don't spend a lot of time there. That's where the whole thing starts, we see that, then the land development, we have cave people and, stuff like that. But anyway, we get to Tom Hanks' character's father, who's Paul Bettany. So we kind of see his parents buying the house, and then young Tom Hanks grows up and he meets Robin Wright, and they start a family, and so on and so on. And it's just I like so Zemeckis loves playing with time. He's obsessed with playing with time, being the man who gave us Back to the Future. So that's really cool. I just some of our subplots I think play better than others, just with the whole jumping around in time thing, and they're all trying to connect to like the theme of like just life being lived. I really love we see the guy who invented the lazy boy lived in this location one time. And I really like that guy. I like that guy's stories. The man who created the lazy boy is like an inventor, and he's really in love with his girlfriend and or wife, and it's just I don't know, it's really nice. It's not a mind bending film like I may have hoped. I think it's basically it captures the feeling of going through a family album, which I think it was very successful at, which I really think is the point of the movie. There's this really adorable moment in the movie where Robin Wright's character, they have a daughter, and she and Tom Hanks have a daughter, and the daughter's like lost her blue ribbon she got at the science fair, or like I think it was the science fair, and it was a very big deal, and she was in a panic, and then they eventually found it. It was like this really happy moment, and we just it's like a little casual thing that happens in the movie, and later on we call it back in the way that would make you all weepy. The tail end where like the blue ribbon, we helped her find the blue ribbon.
You found the magic bean.
Exactly, Tiki. It feels exactly like that, and it's really nice. It's like a really nice pathos-filled moment. So I mean, look, it's not the greatest movie. The critics were really harsh against it. I think it's harmless. I think it's just kind of cute. It's like Zemeckis. It's a reunion movie. Like, I just wanted to do something with Tom Hanks rather than do all my Zemeckis-y kind of things and just have a good time. And it feels like that, so it's just nice.
All right, cool. Okay, next up, going from here to I'm Still Here.
That was absolutely intentional. Nice. Basically here, and I'm still here.
All right, so this is of course, the winner of Best International Feature this year, the rightful winner, I think. So essentially this is the true story, and this is such a true story that the director was actually family friends with the family. Like, the director was actually in this household as the shit was going down, which I think is fascinating, and you can kind of really feel that authenticity. So essentially, the first half of this movie is basically like just getting to know the family. And it's a family living in Brazil during Brazil's big kind of like I don't necessarily think this movie does a great job of letting you know the exact details of what was going on with the government of Brazil at the time, except that they were kind of fascist and kind of just rounding up people for no reason, really not, any sort of people. It was essentially like a Red Scare, except against people that were against the Brazilian government, but the government was conducting it. And but we see in the backdrop of that, like, we're seeing stuff like the teenage daughter getting harassed by the cops and stuff like that. But really, it's just this family living their life, and they have a big circle of friends that come over to the house. That's kind of where the director kind of comes into play, where he has memories of coming over to the house for these big parties. So we see that in effect. We see the big social life this family has. They have like 5 kids, so there's a lot to keep track of here. The mother is essentially just a homemaker. The father is a journalist. And about halfway through the movie, and we know that this is happening. So during the first half, when everything is happy, there is like just a looming sense of dread of like, when is the shoe going to drop? When is the bad thing going to happen? Which I do think is a really good exercise in suspense, honestly. And when it happens, it's devastating, because what happens is that the Brazilian government literally shows up on this family's front door, asks to bring the father in for quote unquote questioning, and he's just never seen from again. Like, he just disappears. And the mother, Fernanda Torres, who of course is a Best Actress nominee, has to pick up the pieces. And there's so many, essentially, Dragon, this movie is kind of like balancing the tension of like, there's 5 kids varying in ages from like, I think the youngest one is maybe like 10 all the way up to like one that's in college and is actually like out of the country, living in Britain with family friends while this is going down. And so Fernanda Torres is like in that juggling act of like, what do I tell the kids? What do I not tell the kids? What kids should know? how do we protect the younger ones? Like, and also throughout this whole thing, inherently pretty early on, she pretty much assumes that the father's dead, but she doesn't know for sure. And the not knowing is just devastating. So it's like Fernanda Torres in this movie is just doing so much heavy. Like, I feel like this is like one of the great pieces of just non-verbal acting. Like, she has a lot of lines, don't get me wrong, it's not like a silent role by any means, but so much of what makes a performance powerful is just in the non-verbal moments, just the tension on her face, just the mixed emotions, and it's captivating stuff, man. It really is. I do think this movie goes on for a little too long. I am a man who loves a good time jump, but we do 2 different time jumps in this movie. We go from like essentially like I appreciate the time jump from when they move away from Brazil, when the family moves away from Brazil, which is basically kind of like the moment where all the kids realize the dad is not coming back when they move away from the family home. And then we time jump to about, I want to say maybe like 15, maybe 20 years later with the kids as adults. The son has written a book. The book is what the movie's based off of. That's fine. I feel like we can catch up there. Fernanda Torres is still playing the character. Then we do another time jump, and this time jump is like in the 2010s, so it's like, like decades later. And Fernanda Torres' mother, who actually was also nominated for an Academy Award back in the day, is playing the character, which cool, I guess, as far as stunt casting goes, but I just think that bit of the epilogue, we don't really need it. Like, it doesn't really add anything. And at that point, I just feel like the running time, like, this could have been a cool 2 hours, and instead it goes on for 2 hours and 15 minutes. And that 15 minutes is kind of that last epilogue. So that's unfortunately the one thing I will say, is that this isn't a movie that that ends with like a really powerful, like, oh man, like you leave the theater like just with your ass being kicked from the ending. But it is a really good, like, I think the first half, just seeing the family together, seeing how good of a dad this father is, and then having it all be pulled away, it is like an exercise in suspense. And then when the shoe does drop, it is devastating. So I don't know, man. I really did like this a lot. I'm very happy for it to have won Best International Feature. I don't think it would have made it onto my top 20, honestly, but I'm still very glad I saw it in theaters. And also, Dragon, this movie is going to be the last movie that I see at the Summerfield Theater in Santa Rosa, which is the independent theater in my county, which is sadly closing down at the end of this week. And that was just announced. So, yeah, this movie kind of very bittersweet in that department. Also bittersweet in regards to like Sean Baker, one of his big Oscar speeches, I think the one that he gave for Best Director, was specifically talking about how we need to protect independent cinemas. So yeah, I'm feeling that firsthand. All right, anyways, next up, Watchmen, Chapter 2.
Yeah, so I was really curious how we were going to condense Watchmen into 2 animated films, and I was impressed with Chapter 1. I liked Chapter 1. Basically, overall, the vibe I had was that it felt like a successful version of the motion comic they attempted a while back. Which basically the problem there was like the motion comic itself wasn't a bad idea. It was just the fact they had one male narrator doing everyone's voice, and it just felt
that is an issue. Yeah,
it just felt kind of dumb. But right. Again, so my only complaint, the only complaint I really had with Chapter 1, aside from just the fact that I'm not sure how I feel about the animation thing, because it feels more motion comic than it does animation, but by the same token, I think you kind of get used to it. So, I mean, I think the actual complaint I had is that I love the actor Titus Welliver. He's great as Bosch. He's not a bad choice. He loved the character. He played Rorschach, and it just felt like Jeffrey Combs is in the movie as Moloch. Why the heck couldn't we get Jeffrey Combs to play Rorschach? Yeah. Okay, literally, he played the Question in Justice League.
Everyone there.
Everyone loves him as the Question in Justice League Unlimited. The Question as a character. essentially was the map for Rorschach and
Yep.
Watchmen. As in, without the question, we do not have Rorschach. So why on God's green earth could Jeffrey Combs, who was in the movie, not play that character? He's a deranged homeless man. Who cares if he's somewhat younger? Who cares? Anyway, so Titus Welliver, while good actor and cared about the role, it felt like I don't know if he was instructed to do this or it was just like a thing of like Jackie Earle Haley did such a good job in the role. That's just kind of how that character sounds. It basically feels like Titus Welliver is playing that character, but no one's ever going to know because he sounds just like Jackie Earle Haley.
Right,
I feel
right,
bad for
right.
him.
Yeah.
That's my only real gripe with the Watchmen thing. So chapter 2. Again, I was really curious, like, how are we going to fit everything in, like, the second part? Like, you feel that would be a 3-act story. We're just doing it in 2 parts. We fit it all in there, and rather impressively, but here's the proviso. Watching it, it did feel like, in the dialogue scenes specifically, it felt like we were kind of on fast forward.
Yeah.
It felt like, we
I
kind of
just
like...
don't. I mean, like Watchmen is just, frankly, I kind of feel like the old attitude about it was kind of the correct attitude. It is kind of unfilmable, honestly.
You kind
I
of
feel
have
like
to...
you can play around in the Watchmen universe. I think the HBO show is a good example of doing that well, but
I mean, that's the thing. It just feels like at the end of the day, no, well, I want to be clear. I support what Zack Snyder did with Watchmen. I really think he did that. That still might be the best
it's
adaptation.
the best Zack Snyder movie. I'll give it that much.
And again, the trick to Zack Snyder is like, man, creatively, he stinks, but knows how to work a camera. He's fantastic. He's an excellent cinematographer, and also, again, when in adapting something and knowing how to film something, and again, like adapting a really good work and just putting it on screen, he's great. Can't write for diddly. Can't do his own original material for diddly. He's terrible at it.
Exactly.
He sucks. It's just he needs good writers. He needs like something that's like irrefutably one of the best works. Like the man could do a movie on the Bible. I'm sure it'd be great. He could. I don't know. My point being.
Could you see Christopher Nolan doing a biblical movie after the Odyssey?
Well, we have to see how the Odyssey goes first, but I mean, maybe. Anyway, I mean, Scorsese did it. Why not?
Right.
Anyway, so my point is, it feels like while I still love that, I still think we did everything we possibly could. Mind you, he made like the giant extent.
Squid stuff.
Well, that's what I was getting at. Okay, so, like it feels like the comic, best adapted would be in a miniseries or like a limited series, like as a show, like we did with the HBO Watchmen. I feel like that's the way we should have done it. So I agree with you. But we did do the Squid. We did the Squid pretty well. But again, it's condensed. It doesn't feel like we just redid the point being including the Squid and doing this. This feels absolutely like the comic and not the Zack Snyder movie made over again. So I will absolutely give it credit there. This feels like absolutely we have adapted the comic, and structurally we trimmed things, but things that we absolutely didn't need. So we didn't lose anything. We had the comic is as represented as it could be. Narratively, it's just the fact that because we're on a time limit, people are talking fast and we're not letting moments sink in. That's the problem.
Yeah, right.
It's like literally, for example, like Hollis Mason dies. We kind of have like the argument between him and Rorschach and the grieving kind of go by a little like that versus like the moment in the Zack Snyder one where, like there's this beautiful moment where,
that's one of the best freaking scenes from the Zack thing, especially the extended scene.
Yeah, but still, like, the whole Hollis Mason thing. But even beyond that, it was like in the movie, you had the bit where, Rorschach and Dan had their little tiff where, it's, as Rorschach, you can't just insult people while you're living off. You know how hard it is being your friend, and a moment of pause goes by, and and Rorschach has this really great moment of humanity where he basically does as close as he can do to an apology, and it's this moment that's only captured there, and I don't know. It's just because there's like a moment of pause, and we don't have time for that pause. We just gonna blow past.
Yeah, right.
So that's my gripe. It's just it's great. We just fast forward there. Here's the best part. They included my favorite moment from the book, which is the one knock I have against the Snyder one. The Snyder put everything in that movie but the one most pivotal scene, I feel. You know, like the whole thing of like, nothing ever ends, Adrian. That's the whole point of that story.
Sure,
Is that he
sure.
did all that potentially for nothing, just for a hollow victory. And what we do in the Zack Snyder one is we just said, John always said nothing ever ends. Like, it was the stupid. It's like, Laurie, why are you taking John's big moments? Anyway, so it's good. I'd recommend checking it out, but it's still not replacing. I don't know if it replaces Snyder at the end of the day, but it is good.
Uh-huh. All right, Karate Kid. Yeah, I finally am getting around to the Karate Kid movies. Part 3 leaves Netflix at the end of the month, so rest assured I will definitely get to part 3 this month. I mean, what can I say about the original Karate Kid that hasn't already been said, honestly? Here's the thing, Dragon. I feel like through pop culture osmosis, all the wax on, wax off training stuff, it's good, but I've obviously like known about it. I like it. It's like just a big part of culture at this point. So it's like didn't really surprise me. What did surprise me and what I really latched onto with this movie is just how gritty some of the actual teen angst stuff is. Like Johnny Lawrence is a formidable threat in this movie, which was surprising. I also love how we do have the character. I forget the names, and we do have the character, the one character in Johnny's gang that's like, very much like, like at first he's like, like saying like, no, don't like take it easy on him, like when they're in the skeleton costumes, and then later on in the tournament, he's the one that does the cheap shop, and he's very apologetic about it. Like
I forget if that's Dutch or not. It might be Dutch.
Yeah. I love Kreese. I love seeing Kreese in this movie. It's definitely really cool, especially with the Cobra Kai of it all. Basically, Dragon, this whole movie is just a great kind of like seeing the primer for what Cobra Kai was able to kind of develop on. All the iconic stuff, golf and stuff. It's just all really good. I really, really was into LaRusso's mother in this movie. I think she's a great kind of like emotional linchpin that sadly is not in the sequel. So, I mean, I don't really know what to say. It's just a stone cold classic. I finally got around to it, and it's as good as everyone says it is, So, yeah, that's about it.
All right. Let me tell you about Goodrich.
All right.
So this is a Michael Keaton film. Sadly, nowhere near as remarkable as Knox Goes Away. Pretty standard fare. Keaton's doing what he can, but it's very subpar material. Basically, he's basically, he's an older man. He has young, like 9-year-old twins, but also in his previous marriage, he has a daughter who's probably in her late 20s or something, played by Mila Kunis, who's about to give birth to her own baby. And it's essentially Tiki, the best way, this is not a recommendation for the movie, but the best way I could summarize this is it's kind of like a lame modern adaptation of Mr. Mom.
Oh God.
And that, I don't mean it's like literally the same story as Mr. Mom, but here's the premise. So Keaton's basically, he runs an art gallery. Yeah, I already mentioned the whole living situation with the kids, but he's basically, his wife, like the movie opens, essentially gets a call in the middle of the night. His wife checked herself in the rehab for 90 days, and she's upset that, I really hate this word. She's upset that he didn't notice that, she basically leaves him over the phone over like, you didn't notice that I had a pill problem?
Oh man.
I guess because he spends so much time in the gallery, but it's like literally you could have told him, maybe talk to your husband.
Yeah.
And that's it. It just feels like a really faulty, really dumb premise. And he's trying to visit her, and it's like the whole rehab thing. Like, well, you're on the visitor list or something. Or the point being, like, you can't see her if she doesn't want to see her. That whole thing. Anyway, it's just very underwhelming. Again, it's like I can kind of get behind Keaton to a point, but it's just the writing is just really. We have good people in this here and there. Like, we have some people from Shrinking in it that I really liked, but aside from that, it's like I don't know. It's just it's kind of bland. It's here. Let me put it this way. Here's the worst scene in the movie. Okay, to me, I like Keaton in this movie. There's one scene that even Keaton can't save, and it's a painfully cringy scene. Okay, so towards the end, we have this whole thing. The whole idea is the Mila Kunis older daughter character is really jealous that now that he's kind of going through this transformation, basically doing the whole Mr. Mom thing with the kids, or the lackluster Mr. Mom thing with the kids. She's insanely jealous of the 9-year-old's getting the dad that she never got. So she's getting upset at the hospital, and she's about to go in for an exam, and basically she goes into labor because of this argument. And it's basically her chewing him out. You just see Keaton just kind of not caring, and it's just really funny. Just him real. It's not. I don't want to say phoning it in, but basically, I don't mean to be mean here, but Mila Kunis isn't giving him anything. She's literally, I don't know if it's the script or her acting, but basically she's chewing him out and just literally, it feels like she's just reading from the script or giant cue cards off screen. It just feels like she's just saying all the problems, they're getting the you that I never got. It's like she's just spelling it out, not acting at all. And Keaton's going, no, honey, it's not that at all. You just feel he has nothing to work with. So it is. You can see him struggling, and it is painful. And it's like, oh wow, God. I was the trailer looked oddly hopeful, maybe it'll be like Keaton's going to turn around, but no, it's It was not pleasant.
All right. Okay, so Karate Kid Part 2. This is all right. I mean, obviously, the big reason I watched this in the first place was to see some Chosen action, and I was not disappointed. I mean, Chosen is genuinely pretty intimidating.
Yeah,
it's surprising, honestly. I will say that I think the uncle character is a little bit half baked. I like the idea of his character. I just don't think he has enough screen time before he gets killed off. I like the idea of Miyagi having a rival. I mean, culturally, I do like all the Miyagi stuff in this movie. I like that we're in Okinawa as far as the travelogue component goes. It's a really nice setting. I just think a couple issues I have, as awesome as the cold open is, which obviously I've already seen through Cobra Kai, but it's cool to see the actual context of it. Man, we write off Allie and even the mother in such a fucking unceremonious way.
Yeah.
And I just think the plot in general is a little light compared to the first Karate Kid. It's just kind of well, we're certainly in Okinawa doing shit. You know what I mean? There's not really as much of a driving tension to the plot like there is in the original Karate Kid, where it's no, these guys are kicking my ass on a daily basis and I need to defend myself. I mean, I think the Chosen thing, the Chosen stuff with the fishing village being kind of run over by the mom, I think that's interesting enough, but it just doesn't have the same sort of urgency to it as the original Karate Kid does. So overall, it's it's a good time. I certainly don't think Kamiko has as good of a chemistry with Daniel as Allie did, and I think Allie was adorable in the original Karate Kid. I'll say that much, and that's why I was kind of a little. And it's not I didn't I obviously knew that Daniel wasn't gonna be with Allie in Karate Kid Part 2 because I knew about the Kamiko of it all. But still, man, we did her dirty. We wrote her out dirty. So yeah, overall, Karate Kid Part 2, fun time, but not exactly I feel like it's one of those sequels that kind of people look as yeah, it was decent, but not nearly as good as the first movie. It kind of has that reputation for a reason. But obviously, with Cobra Kai, we're totally recontextualizing Chosen, so this is a must-watch just for that alone. So yeah. All right.
Brothers in Arms. So this is a documentary on the making of Platoon. It's on Amazon. This is like your Talking Head documentary, Tiki. This is a comfort watch. This is my kind of documentary. This was Yeah, it's basically guys reminiscing, kind of swapping stories. It's basically the act. Essentially, with Platoon, the making of Platoon, the actors were put through a literal Vietnam experience. Like Oliver Stone, he's kind of a psychotic but beloved director. And he had this like this actual like kind of drill instructor basically put them through boot camp, and not just put them through like, oh yeah, the actors going to boot camp, but like actual put them through legit boot camp that would basically put them in the Vietnamese experience.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it was the strike because Oliver Stone's all about authenticity and getting it no matter what it takes. And again, Oliver Stone's like this cocaine fueled madman, so he's.
Yes.
I'm asking, rarely is he not on at this point in time. He's probably always on cocaine, but you know what I mean. That's always the gag about Oliver Stone is that he's the intense version of Scorsese. He's the intense version of like the Spielberg buddies.
Sure.
You know. Anyway, so he is the point being, this is a cool examination of method acting and just the idea that we're gonna put these guys. Again, this essentially is like I want to say in hindsight, this was kind of like the inspiration for Tropic Thunder to some degree, like the making of Platoon. I want to say.
Mhm.
Anyway, so it's very, very conversational. Like Defoe, Keith David, Charlie Sheen, like everyone came back to talk about this, and you get some really cool stories and some really shocking stories. Like Defoe almost died from like food poisoning while he was there. It was like this whole thing, and the fact that here's the thing. Here's the crazy part. So basically, their instructor basically they were they couldn't be tapped out of this thing, as in like any medical attention they needed had to be like field prepared. So Defoe had to suffer.
Oh God.
As I'm saying, like there would be like actual danger. Now, mind you, something they could over time they could be like wheeled out. But I'm saying if anything immediate happened, they are on their own. Like to patch up their own wounds if something bad happens.
Uh-huh.
So stuff like that. And also there's like a scene where one of the actors, I'm trying to remember who, I think it was Tom Berenger. He had to get really intense per the direction of Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone had some really, and he had like some actual Vietnamese kind of like ex-soldiers or something there, and like some actors. He had extras who were Vietnamese extras who were, um, essentially they were not in the know during some scenes in that movie. Like there's a scene where a poor young Vietnamese guy, at least I think he might have been I forget if they shot in the Philippines, and essentially we were filling in for the point. We had an actor, a non-actor actually, an extra who was just an average guy got like like cold cocked in the head, and that's not a fabrication. You actually see him get cold cocked in the head in that movie and stuff like Tom Berenger had to traumatize a poor little girl in that movie in that scene where like he's like threatening a little girl, and like there was like you had like one of the I guess Philip one of the soldiers there actually like went for his gun, and Johnny Depp had to like reach out and like stop him from actually potentially shooting Tom Berenger. It was like it's tense, man. There are a lot of really stories in this thing. It has like kind of like a Lost Souls vibe to it, like the making of the Lost in La Mancha kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, worth a watch. It's pretty cool.
Right. Okay, so I saw a little movie called Gone with the Wind. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it. It's
It's an independent film, I think.
yeah, it's a little independent feature.
Yeah.
No, I saw this for Flashback Cinema, like for like one of the few times during the month that Flashback Cinema isn't just playing the Harry Potter movies over and over and over and over again. Shade. Yes, that was shade. But I'm sorry. No, this was really cool to see on the big screen, man. Obviously, certain elements of it are a little bit dated, but it's not as bad as I thought because, I mean, I don't know, it's complicated. Like, first of all, Scarlett O'Hara, inherently Dragon, is a very, very flawed, messy as fuck character. And I was very impressed that, like, this movie is way ahead of its time when it comes to just like depicting a female character like that, a lead female character like that. I love Rhett Butler. Rhett Butler is a snide son of a bitch, and I love it. Clark Gable just has such a great screen presence. I love the fact that like this movie, it's like if you just know this movie from the poster, you think like, oh, this is a sweeping romance. No, it is not. Rhett and Scarlett's romance is toxic as fuck. And it's like it is not meant to be seen as idealized, and that's kind of the point. Um So even the controversial stuff, like, I mean, obviously you've got Hattie McDaniel as or Hattie, I'm sorry, Hattie Mc now I'm doubting myself, Dragon. I need to look it up. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Hattie McDaniel. I was right. I just want to be sure.
I wonder if she actually wore hats.
Obviously, you have her as like the first Black person to win an Academy Award. Very nuanced role. One of my favorite elements of her is the fact that Rhett Butler, like, she's like the one person in the whole movie that Rhett Butler actually like wants the approval of, which I find a very interesting dynamic. Then you've got characters like the supporting slave characters are a bit yikes, especially like Big Sam, who's very much just like, oh yeah, we're going off to fight with the Northerners because or to fight against the Northerners because, you know, like, fuck abolishing slavery, am I right? Like, no. It's but honestly, like, this movie is fucking epic, dude. Like, not just in the fact that it's almost 4 hours long, which I kind of like just as a cinematic experience point of view, but just there are so many extras in this movie. There are so many characters and moving parts and dynamics in this movie. There are so many like set pieces. I mean, the entire South basically crumbles to the ground through the first half of this movie, and I love the point where we end the intermission on the whole "I will never go hungry again" thing.
I said my favorite line in the movie. I know everyone goes to the whole like Scarlet, I don't give a crap, but I love the whole like, and I shall never go hungry again.
Right, it's super memorable. I mean, that's the line that brings us into intermission, and it's a super memorable line. Yeah, the colors obviously are just incredibly striking. Like, I mean, this is one of the best movies ever made. I'm just gonna say it. Like, it's obviously it's got some controversial elements to it, but the thing is, I don't necessarily think that it's glorifying slavery just because
it's set during the Civil War. Of course, there's going to be slavery.
And Scarlett O'Hara is just inherently a messy as fuck protagonist who you're not really supposed to be rooting for. I will say that the one thing that makes me uncomfortable is the fact that, like, they do depict the Northerners as, like, objectively the villains. But I mean, if you're telling this story from Scarlett O'Hara's point of view, and the whole point of this story is that Scarlett O'Hara is having her whole life kind of like uprooted and she has to like start over again, hence the whole "I'll never go hungry again" thing, then yeah, the people that took away that lavish lifestyle from her are going to be the villains. So I kind of understand it. Like, I don't know, man. This thing is just a fucking landmark. It is. I mean, it's a towering achievement. I absolutely get the reservations for it. And again, Drake, hold on. I actually still have it. You know, why does men on the internet, Drake? Like I do not know the subtleties of why this movie is offensive in the way that it is. Like, I get that. I'm not exactly the person to talk about that. But for me personally, for this David Hyde Pierce skiing motherfucker, I thought the experience of watching Gone with the Wind on the big screen is like one of the most memorable film experiences I've had in some time, honestly. Probably the single most memorable in theater experience I've had since seeing Dune Part 2 in IMAX. I'll go that far. So yeah.
Well, I mean, Tiki, in a sense, you got to step back in time. You get to see that on a big screen like that. And had the intermission, you had the whole ball of wax.
It did have the intermission. The intermission wasn't 15 minutes, though. I'll tell you that much.
Well, still, it's the fact that you got to step back in time to have a theatrical experience like that. You give a sense of what those people the first time around kind of went through. It's kind of big.
Yeah, it was awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, crack out these last two quick, Dragon.
Okay, Hunter x Hunter. There's not a lot to them. It's should be quick. So again, as I mentioned, I watched Hunter x Hunter, the show. Basically, I kind of figured I'd complete that loop by watching the two films that were kind of with it. Like unlike Dragon Ball, it doesn't have like 9 billion like spin-off films. that are always out
that
of
are all
canon.
in their own continuity.
Exactly. So this is somewhat okay. So this is only there's only two of them, but this is kind of a similar vein where these things they're kind of following the show, but they're also kind of like they're all doing it's kind of non-canon. So take it for what you will. Here's the thing. So the first one up is Hunter x Hunter Phantom Rogue. Now I like this one a little more than the other one because this one actually kind of has a point to it where basically also the reason I watched these two is that I wanted to see like kind of the anime movies that are tied into shows because I talked about Cowboy Bebop last month. I was gonna do Yu Yu Hakusho did get a movie which I had no idea about. Unfortunately, when I watched it, I had a startling realization.
Is it one of those movies where it's just episodes of the show stitched together?
No. They had a terrible.
Anime does do that quite a bit.
No, I know. I'm aware of that, but no, this was something else. There's a Yu Yu Hakusho, the movie for there. I did a little research into it vaguely after I just kind of skipped around to see. The dub was completely off for some reason. Like it's none of the voices. Like it's like all. It's like the wrong sounding Muppets joke from Family Guy. It's like all all the beloved characters. Like I can't get into this at all. They're all wrong. It's not even just like one recast. Like all of them are recasts. It's terrible. I can't do this.
Mm.
Anyway, okay. So long story short, this basically in Hunter x Hunter at the very end, there's one character who's completely missing from like that last season where he kind of was starting to fix Karapika. And Karapika is kind of a really cool character, and we just completely shortchanged, and this movie kind of makes up for that. So that's what's kind of cool about Phantom Rogue is that we see what Karapika's been up to during all that, or at least around that time. So we give him one big adventure. He's basically getting Karapika. Long story short, he belonged to a clan of kind of noble warriors who had scarlet eyes, and essentially they were all wiped out by the Phantom Troop. And he sought revenge, and it's a really cool thing. He's like the last survivor of this noble bunch. Anyways, this kind of ties into his past a little bit. It's kind of him getting seeking revenge for that. We have this creepy bad guy who steals people's eyes and puts them in puppets. He's like really creepy. So this was cool.
You said the steal people's eyes thing. I was like, okay, but then the puppets thing, like, yeah, that is.
He steals people's eyes and puts the eyes into puppets.
Like, yeah, that is.
It basically creates a copy of the person and puts stealing the eyes and putting them in, not even directly of the person, creates copies of other people and just puts the real people's eyes in the puppets and leaves the people blind because they don't have eyes anymore. It's really creepy. Anyway, so that's really good. Hunter, the last mission. It's fun. It's a fun one for the road. There's really not a lot of substance to it. It's just more its action. It's like it feels more like along the lines of a Yu-Gi-Oh! The movie, where it was like it's not episodes of the series, but this one feels like an extended episode of the series. It just feels like okay, just for the heck of it, for a movie, for like the last go around, we brought like this rando bad guy, Jed. Yes, we've heard the tales of Jed never. So Jed is basically, he has like an evil version of like, it's kind of like the Dragon Ball Ki equivalent, the energy power equivalent. So we had Nen in the show. This guy has Own. Own is like this it's the dark version of Nen. He wants to sell people in the dark version of Nen. He's fighting like the Master Roshi-esque character with the chairman. And as I've said, it's not really, in terms of plot, not a lot there. It's cool, but I think the Phantom Rogue had a little more substance to it. So,
Okay.
All right.
Alrighty.
Sorry, before we go, one last thing.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention this. In Hunter x Hunter, one of the coolest things, my buddy's favorite character, there's basically an anime equivalent to the Joker in this show called Hisoka. And he's like this really he's a creepy clown who's a master fighter, and he's just terrifying.
Ooh.
Okay, there you go.
All right. Okay, best and worst. What do you got?
Okay, best, I'm going to say Piece by Piece.
Nice.
Okay, worst, I'm going to say, I think it has to be Goodrich. Goodrich is just like, it was very disappointing.
Sounds like it. All right, best, I mean, like, come on. Obviously, it's got to be Gone with the Wind.
I was wondering, is he really gonna put something else over Gone with
the Wind? No, of course not.
Like literally, until we adjusted for inflation, the highest grossing movie of all time. Until we learned like we can charge more for these tickets, it was Gone with the Wind.
Right. Worst, I mean, it's not like I didn't hate it, but Heart Eyes was definitely the most disposable thing that I watched this month by a pretty wide margin.
It's the Kodak movie.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, so big thanks to Keeper Colby, Miscellaneous, Eli of Little Blue Productions, as well as Teddy and Code Geass for joining us in the comments. Y'all were really lively until you weren't, but it's fine because we need to get through this shit anyways, so no problem there. Okay, so folks, we've waxed on long enough, and it's time to put the pen down. But we'll be back again next month for another installment in our
Movie Memoirs!
Paddington in Peru.